Chapter 1138. The Wangna Mountain Range was an ordinary mountain range in the wasteland. However, it was extremely large. Moreover, because no natural treasures had ever appeared before, this place was usually deserted and hardly anyone would come here. However, on this day, a group of thousands of people flew over from afar. All of them had surging vital energy and blood. Their auras were extremely terrifying. Wherever they passed, the void would constantly ripple. It was simply earth-shattering. On 9 heavens, after arriving at the Wangna Mountain Range, the thousands of people quickly spread out and surrounded the Wangnan Mountain Range from afar. Then, they quickly surrounded the depths of the Wangnan Mountain Range. These thousands of people were the top experts from the top tribes in the wasteland. Their target was Xie Changping, who was hiding in the Wangnan Mountain Range. In other words, their target was the undying blood soul in Xie Changping's possession. At this moment, deep underground in the depths of the Wangnan Mountain Range, a huge cave dwelling was opened up. In the center of the cave dwelling, a middle-aged man was sitting cross-legged. In front of him, there was a constantly twisting blood-red phantom. It was the undying blood soul. The undying blood soul had been imprisoned by Xie Changping. At this moment, Xie Changping was trying to refine it. However, how could the undying blood soul be so easy to refine? Therefore, during this period of time, he had been refining it but did not gain anything. Suddenly, Xie Changping, who was refining the undying blood soul with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, the undying blood soul was also stored in his storage ring. Someone's coming, and it's not just one person. Xie Changping abruptly stood up from the ground with a grave expression on his face. After a while, Xie Changping sneered. "I'd like to see how you're going to die." Before opening up the cave dwelling, he had set up countless restrictions and formations outside. Even an expert at the peak of the 9th heaven of the divine grade could be blasted to death if he rashly barged in. The reason why he noticed someone approaching was because those spirit arrays or restrictions had been triggered. Outside the cave dwelling, the thousands of experts could not help but frown when they saw the invisible but real restrictions and formations. There were hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions. Each and every one of them was intricate and complicated, intertwining and intertwining together. If they activated one of the restrictions or formations, the rest of the formations would immediately be activated. Faced with hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions, even if they were at the pinnacle of the divine heavenly sovereign level, they did not dare to take even half a step into the lightning pool, because they would also be killed. Therefore, the thousands of top powerhouses could only stand outside the cave abode with ugly expressions on their faces. Thousands of people were blocked by a single person. If it was anyone else, their expression would not be good. It will take a very long time to break these formations. "We can only break it with brute force," one of the experts said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded in agreement. They could only resort to brute force to destroy these formations. However, who knew what other tricks Xie Changping had up his sleeves? "There's no need to go through so much trouble. These formations are useless against me." Murong stepped forward and sneered at the hundreds of millions of formations. Everyone was shocked as they turned to look at Murong. He then saw that Murong had already stepped into the formation. Everyone could not help but take a step back. It was completely an instinctive reaction. However, they soon felt ashamed and shocked. They were ashamed because they were scared out of their wits. They were shocked because Murong had already entered the formation, but those formations were not activated at all. It was as if they were in vain. Of course, they knew that those formations had not failed, because they were standing there, but they could still feel those terrifying formations and restrictions. Murong ignored the formations and restrictions. Everyone looked at Murong in shock. At this moment, Murong was slowly approaching the cave abode as if he was taking a stroll in the park. He turned a blind eye to those formations. Inside the cave abode, Xie Changping's face was filled with confusion. He could clearly feel that someone had touched the formation earlier. Although he had retreated in time and did not activate the power of the formation, he knew that there were powerhouses coming over. However, After a long time, there was no movement outside. No one broke the formation, nor did they kill it with brute force. Could it be that those people did not come over? Only some demonic beasts touched it? Xie Qingping heaved a sigh of relief and glanced at the transportation formation at the side. After being chased for 10,000 years, although he had opened up a cave abode this time, he had already prepared a backup plan, a transportation formation. Once he discovered that the formation outside was broken or destroyed by brute force, he would immediately enter the transportation formation and escape. You seem very disappointed? Just as Xie Qingping heaved a sigh of relief, a faint voice suddenly sounded behind him. Xie Qingping was instantly shocked. In an instant, his entire body tensed up, and his strength was instantly raised to the extreme. His figure swayed, and he quickly retreated. Who are you? During this process, Xie Qingping finally turned around, but he was shocked to discover that a black-clothed youth had appeared in the cave abode. It was Murong. If you don't want to die, give me the undying blood soul. Otherwise, I can only take it myself. Murong looked at Xie Qingping and smiled faintly. Xie Qingping laughed out loud. Undying blood soul? If you want it, come and get it. As he spoke, Xie Qingping had already slowly walked towards the transportation formation at the corner of the cave abode. He was very wary of Murong. After all, he could avoid the hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions and walk into the cave abode silently. He was definitely not an ordinary top powerhouse. Therefore, Xie Qingping did not want to escape with Murong at all. He only wanted to escape from this place. This was because he saw danger and even death from Murong. Murong did not seem to notice Xie Qingping's actions and only looked at him with a smile. Haha, you want the blood soul? You can have it first in your next life. Xie Qingping finally approached the transportation formation and immediately laughed out loud. At the same time, he stepped into the transportation formation. As long as he stepped into the transportation formation, he could be directly transported out of this cave abode. Moreover, Murong could not track him at all because this formation was a one-time use formation. After using it once, it would automatically be destroyed. However, before he could finish his sentence, Xie Qingping's expression turned extremely ugly. This was because he was still standing in the transportation formation, but the formation did not move at all, let alone transport him out. You did something to the transportation formation. Xie Qingping looked at Murong angrily with a murderous look. Murong smiled very brightly. Now, are you going to give me the undying blood soul, or do you want me to take it myself? Die! Xie Qingping roared and turned into a stream of light, rushing towards Murong. At the same time, he punched towards Murong's head, wanting to kill him with one punch. Murong's eyebrows flashed coldly. You really overestimate yourself. As he spoke, Murong waved his hand, and the space around Xie Qingping was confined. At this moment, Xie Qingping felt as if he had fallen into a swamp and could not move. Immediately, he was shocked. Murong made his move. He took a step forward, appeared in front of Xie Qingping, and punched out. After a loud bang, Xie Dongping felt as if his body had been hit by a huge sacred mountain. Kacha, kacha! After a series of cracking sounds, the bones and flesh of his body began to break apart inch by inch. He was also sent flying. Poof! Xie Qingping spat out a large mouthful of blood. In the end, he lay on the ground like a dead dog, glaring at Murong with a venomous expression. Who are you? Die or give me the undying blood soul. Murong walked up and looked at Xie Qingping indifferently. Ever since Murong had broken through to the pinnacle of the 9th heavenly layer of the divine heavenly layer, he had become even more powerful. Now he could easily kill a pinnacle 9th heavenly layer of the divine heavenly layer with a single punch. Ha ha! Xie Qingping suddenly laughed, his voice full of hatred and anger. You want the undying blood soul? You won't get anything. Let's die together. As Xie Qingping spoke, he suddenly soared into the sky and rushed out of the cave. He wanted to trigger the formation and perish together with Murong. It's a waste of effort. Murong shook his head, and a cold light flashed between his eyebrows. He took a step forward and punched out. Boom! Murong punched out with all his might. After a loud bang, Xie Chengping's entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist, and he died on the spot. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Murongyu reached out and took Xie Chengping's storage ring. Then he stepped out. Originally, Murongyu wanted to take Xie Chengping as his disciple. After all, Xie Chengping was safe and sound after being hunted by countless peak divine grade experts for 10,000 years. He was considered a talent. However, since Xie Chengping was seeking his own death, Murongyu had no choice but to fulfill his wish. Murongyu, you got the undying blood soul? Seeing Murongyu step out of the countless formations and prohibitions, the experts in the cave were all terrified. The peak experts outside the cave were all frightened out of their wits. They were afraid that Murongyu would make a single mistake and trigger the hundreds of millions of formations and restrictions. Xie Chengping is dead. Murongyu nodded slightly in response. Then, he soared into the sky and shot toward the direction of Shinwu Mountain. Although the crowd was a little envious, no one dared to say anything. They were all excited because they would soon be able to enter the legendary realm of the gods. There were more people in Shinwu Mountain than before. It was densely packed with experts of various realms. However, until now, no one had been able to leave through the passage. Everyone, enter my space treasure first. Of course, if you don't believe me, you can choose not to enter. Outside Shinwu Mountain, Murongyu stopped and said to the thousands of experts who followed him. Chapter 1139. In most cases, no one was willing to enter another person's treasure space, because in the treasure space, the owner of the treasure was the dominator. Even if they were much stronger than the owner of the treasure, they would be suppressed and eventually killed easily. Therefore, unless they were close friends, most people would not be willing to enter another person's treasure space. Therefore, when Murongyu said those words, everyone turned silent and revealed looks of hesitation. To be honest, they did not want to enter the Hichu Luo Shu. But if they did not enter the Hichu Luo Shu, they could not leave the desolate world. I'm willing. Since being beaten by Murongyu last time, Tang Xingting did not resent Murongyu anymore. On the contrary, he trusted Murongyu very much. Once Murongyu made a decision, he would be the first to support it. We're willing to. After Tang Xingting, the people of the Green Sun tribe, led by Di Zhengye, also agreed. Then, everyone agreed one after another. They all believed that Murongyu did not need to do this at all and would not attack them in his treasure space. With Murongyu's strength, he did not need to do this at all. Immediately, Murongyu took these people into the Hichu Luo Shu. Then, he displayed the angel wings and quickly rose into the air. That man has appeared again. Is he going to the divine realm? When they saw Murongyu soar into the sky, those who had seen him not too long ago immediately cried out in alarm. Swish! Hundreds of millions of experts instantly focused their eyes on Murongyu. Murongyu turned a blind eye to this. His whole body turned into a stream of light and rushed into the passage in the sky. Swish! As soon as he approached the passage, a terrible suction acted on Murongyu and pulled him into the passage in an instant. Murongyu did not make any resistance. He just took out the Hichu Luo Shu and the Yin-Yang Cauldron to protect himself. Swish! Swish! Whoosh! The scenery before his eyes kept changing. It seemed as if billions of years had passed, yet it also seemed as if only an instant had passed. Not long after, an incomparably dense heaven and earth essence chi rushed over. The origin energy of the heavenly realm. In an instant, Murongyu was drowned by the chi of heaven and earth. Spreading out his divine sense, Murongyu saw the familiar sky and earth. Eastern wasteland. Murongyu took a deep breath of the fresh and clean world origin chi of the god realm. He couldn't help but reveal an excited expression on his face. I've finally returned to the god realm. The desolate world was filled with baleful aura, and his cultivation was being suppressed bit by bit. This made Murongyu very unhappy. But in the immortal realm, there was no suppression, and he could use his strength as he wished. Return to Shenzhen or the Holy City first. Murongyu floated in the air, smelling the faint scent of blood in the air and thinking about where he should go next. Shangzhen has one Ling and the others holding the fort, so there shouldn't be any problems now. I'll go to the chaotic secret land to improve my cultivation first. Although my physical body has reached the peak of the divine grade, the higher my cultivation, the stronger I will be. While thinking, Murongyu's figure flashed and appeared in the chaotic secret land. As for those divine grade experts, Murongyu didn't plan to let them out now. Boy, your physical body. As soon as Murongyu appeared, Lu Haotsong's slightly surprised voice rang in his ears. Lu Haotsong was very shocked because Murongyu's physical body was infinitely close to a divine body. Even those false divine grade experts' physical bodies couldn't compare to Murongyu's. How long has it been? Could this be the legendary chaotic celestial body? While Lu Haotsong was shocked, he kept looking at Murongyu. Old Lu, I'll go cultivate first. After saying goodbye to Lu Haotsong, Murongyu took a step forward and disappeared from Lu Haotsong's sight. The 6th level of the chaotic celestial body record had been completed. As long as he had enough power, Murongyu could directly break through to the peak of the Celestial Master realm and even enter the Quasi-Saint realm in one fell swoop. Therefore, what Murongyu needed to do now was not to comprehend or cultivate, but to constantly absorb the chaotic power. In a flash, Murongyu had already rushed to the depths of the chaotic secret land. There was more chaotic airflow here, and it was purer. After appearing here, he sat down cross-legged on the ground, relaxed his body and mind, and began to absorb the chaotic power crazily. This kid is too terrifying. Seeing Murongyu's strength rapidly increasing, Lu Haotsong, who followed him, couldn't help but be shocked. And he was greatly shocked. Back when he was still a deity, he was already considered a genius. However, compared to Murongyu, he couldn't even catch up to him. Rumble, with enough energy to devour, one's cultivation speed would be very fast. Before long, Murongyu had already successfully broken through the realm, reaching the realm of Empyrean. Then, his cultivation level continued to rise. Early Heavenly Venerable, Middle Heavenly Venerable, Late Heavenly Venerable, all the way to peak Late Heavenly Venerable. He was only one step away from the realm of Quasi-Saint. However, at this time, Murongyu had also stopped cultivating. It had been less than 100 years. Of course, this breakthrough was only in his primal god lattice. As for the spatial godhead and lightning divinity, they were still in the primordial god realm. However, since the primal god lattice had already broken through, it was only a matter of time before the other 2 god lattices broke through as well. As long as Murongyu continued to devour energy, he would soon break through. However, Murongyu didn't have that much time now. There were too many things waiting for him to do. Empyrean realm, peak saint level physical body. I can even destroy an ordinary quasi-saint with one punch. Murongyu felt his powerful strength, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Old Lu, I have something to do now. I'll leave first. Before Lu Haotsong could say anything, Murongyu left a sentence and then disappeared into the chaotic secret ground. This chaotic kid, Lu Haotsong gritted his teeth. However, he couldn't do anything to Murongyu. Although he was an imperishable saint, he couldn't leave the chaotic secret ground. Moreover, he didn't want to do anything to Murongyu. After leaving the chaotic secret ground, Murongyu directly entered the heaven domain. Although he couldn't control the entire heaven domain now, as his strength continued to increase, he could control more quasi-saint. This time, he wanted to control more quasi-saint. The stronger Shenzhen was, the more powerful Murongyu would be. Boom! Murongyu appeared in the wilderness of the heaven domain. Because it was night, he encountered a rank 1 quasi-saint beast as soon as he appeared. The ferocious beast immediately discovered Murongyu and pounced over with a roar. However, it didn't expect Murongyu to be faster than it. Before it ran over, Murongyu had already rushed up and punched the beast. After a loud explosion, the rank 1 quasi-saint beast didn't even have time to scream before it exploded into a bloody mist. It couldn't be more dead. Rank 1 quasi-saint, no pressure at all. Muronyu shook his head, and with a shake of his body, he had already soared into the sky. The night of the Heaven Domain was a paradise for beasts. Not long after, Muronyu encountered a rank 3 quasi-saint beast. The rank 3 quasi-saint beast was not Muronyu's opponent and was easily killed by Muronyu. There was still no pressure. Rank 4 quasi-saint and rank 5 quasi-saint beasts. Muronyu could already kill rank 5 quasi-saint beasts. However, if it was a rank 6 quasi-saint beast, it would be difficult for him to kill it with his strength. However, although Muronyu couldn't kill a rank 6 quasi-saint beast, it wouldn't be easy for a rank 6 quasi-saint or even a higher rank quasi-saint beast to kill him. After all, his physical body had reached the peak of the divine heavenly sovereign level, and there were also heavenly venerables. Once his space quintessence and lightning divinity broke through to the peak of the heavenly venerables, when the power of all three quintessences erupted, Muronyu would definitely be able to kill rank 6, rank 7, or even rank 8 quasi-saint beasts. Still a bit lacking. Muronyu was a little depressed. He thought that with his physical body, he would be able to fight rank 10 quasi-saint beasts after reaching the heavenly venerate level. However, it seemed that the gap was still too big. Previously, I could only control 4 rank 10 quasi-saint beasts. Now, I should be able to control 10 rank 10 quasi-saint beasts, right? Muronyu thought to himself as he entered Hichu Luo Shu. After entering the Qingyun realm, he discovered that his connection with the Qingyun realm had become stronger. However, it still hadn't reached the level where he could control the entire Qingyun realm. However, he could now control more quasi-saint beasts. Yang Qin, I'll borrow your power later to bring in some rank 10 quasi-saint beasts. When the time comes, you'll be the first to attack them. Controlling Hichu Luo Shu, Muronyu secretly snuck into the residence of a rank 10 quasi-saint. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to Yang Qin. Yang Qin nodded and was already prepared. Muronyu took a deep breath, and his chaos divine veins burned rapidly, providing Hichu Luo Shu with a huge amount of power. At the same time, Muronyu also began to borrow power directly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The power of Yang Qin, Wenling, Shindahai, Zhuqiu Qing, and the other quasi-saint beasts under Muronyu's control traversed the void and poured into Muronyu's body. With a whoosh, Muronyu released Hichu Luo Shu and directly enveloped the rank 10 quasi-saint beasts that Muronyu was targeting. A strong sense of danger suddenly appeared in the mind of the rank 10 powerhouse. He immediately realized what was going on. However, it was already too late. The He-Tu and the Luo Shu slammed down. As the person retreated, he was sucked into the He-Tu and the Luo Shu. The rank 10 quasi-saint was stunned. Before he could react, a terrifying power came crashing down on him, wanting to kill him. He was furious and was about to retaliate. However, at this moment, he was shocked to discover that an inexplicable power was pressing down on him from all directions. It began to suppress, imprison, and even seal him. Chapter 1140. When Muronyu borrowed the power, the quasi-saint that he controlled immediately knew that he had returned. Therefore, none of them resisted. Instead, they directly rushed into their own rooms or other safe places and sat down cross-legged. They knew that Muronyu usually did not borrow their power. However, if he did, it meant that Muronyu needed their power. He must have encountered some danger or something very important. It could even be a matter of life and death. Muronyu's strength was enough to kill a rank 5 quasi-saint. After borrowing everyone's power, his strength instantly soared. He directly rushed to the rank 10 quasi-saint realm. Under normal circumstances, even if Muronyu borrowed the power of a saint, he would not have such a terrifying increase in strength. This was because his physical body could not withstand such a powerful force. However, it was different now. His physical body had reached the pinnacle of the saint level, infinitely close to the saint level. Naturally, he could withstand the power of a rank 10 quasi-saint. It was because he knew that he could reach the rank 10 quasi-saint realm that Murong Yu and Yang Qin dared to come to the heaven domain to subdue a rank 10 quasi-saint. However, the higher Murong Yu's realm rose, the more the quasi-saint's strength would be consumed. Therefore, Murong Yu had to end the battle quickly. At the same time as his realm rose, the power of Hichu Luoshu was pushed to the extreme by Murong Yu. Naturally, the rank 10 quasi-saint was suppressed to the extreme. Boom! Boom! Almost at the same time, Yang Qin and Murong Yu's attacks landed on the rank 10 quasi-saint. Because he was suppressed, Murong Yu and Yang Qin's strength was not inferior to his. Therefore, the rank 10 quasi-saint was heavily injured before he could even see who attacked him. Murong Yu and Yang Qin did not give him a chance to heal and attacked again. In the end, the rank 10 quasi-saint powerhouse was crippled by Murong Yu and Yang Qin's attacks before he was sealed by Murong Yu. After sealing this super powerhouse, Murong Yu stopped borrowing power. However, even though it was only for a short period of time, more than half of the power of the quasi-saints that he had borrowed from had been depleted. One could imagine how terrifying the consumption was. Control. Before the quasi-saint could speak, Murong Yu directly controlled him. Zhang Yongyan was the name of the rank 10 quasi-saint. He was a powerhouse of the human race. After treating Zhang Yongyan's injuries, Murong Yu and Yang Qin's attacks continued. A second rank 10 quasi-saint, a third quasi-saint. More and more rank 10 quasi-saints appeared in Hichu Luoshu. Until Murong Yu controlled 10 rank 10 quasi-saints, he could no longer control more quasi-saints. For the time being, Murong Yu's limit was 16 rank 10 quasi-saints. Of course, this was only temporary. As Murong Yu's other two godheads broke through to the peak heavenly venerable realm, the number of rank 10 quasi-saints he could control would definitely increase. Once he reached the quasi-saint's realm, he could directly control the entire Qingyun realm. At that time, he would be the absolute overlord of the realm of the gods. However, even now, Shenzhen's strength was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Other than those superpowers with false saints, which other superpower had 16 rank 10 quasi-saints? After he could no longer control rank 10 quasi-saints, Murong Yu continued to control other quasi-saints. Rank 9 quasi-saints, rank 8 quasi-saints, and rank 7 quasi-saints. One after another, Murong Yu controlled a total of 100 quasi-saints. The human race and the goblin race were almost equal. Shenzhen's strength increased again. It was comparable to the 4 great academies, and even surpassed some of them. Now, it's time to return to Shenzhen. Murong Yu returned to the Eastern Wilderness Holy City after he could no longer control more quasi-saints. As soon as Murong Yu appeared in the Holy City, he felt that something was wrong. Before he left the Eastern Wilderness and entered the Wasteland world, the Holy City was one of the busiest cities in the human race. However, now it was slightly bleak. The atmosphere was oppressive, and it was extremely silent. He scanned with his divine consciousness and found that Shenzhen's disciples in the Holy City were all lifeless. In fact, other than Shenzhen's disciples, there were no outsiders in the huge Holy City. What's going on? Was this place attacked by the goblin race? Murong Yu walked toward the Holy City's city leader's residence with a gloomy face. Originally, he wanted to release Di Jingye and the others from the Hichu Luoshu, but now Murong Yu had no intention of letting them out. Holy Lord, you're back. Before Murong Yu reached the city leader's residence, a few figures rushed out. It was when Ling and the other quasi-saint who were guarding the Holy City. Murong Yu glanced at them indifferently, his face extremely gloomy. Give me a satisfactory explanation. Murong Yu stepped into the city leader's residence and sat down, his face still gloomy. When Ling and the others looked at each other, then when Ling stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Ever since the Holy Lord disappeared, the Holy City was still the same. Nothing major happened. However, as more and more blood crystals appeared in the Eastern Wilderness, experts from both the human race and the goblin race kept breaking through because of the blood crystals. There were more and more quasi-saint realm experts. There were even quite a few rank 10 quasi-saint experts. 500 years after the Holy Lord disappeared, a battle god sect appeared in the Human Race Alliance army. As when Ling continued, Muron, you finally understood why the Holy City was so bleak today. The battle god sect had appeared almost overnight. As soon as they appeared, they became one of the strongest forces in the human race. Then, they attacked one by one and subdued many sects and forces. In less than 100 years, the battle god sect had become one of the strongest forces other than the 4 academies and Shenzhen. Their strength was even close to Shenzhen's. However, Shenzhen still had 5 rank 10 quasi-saint guardians. Even if they wanted to subdue Shenzhen, it was impossible. However, they never gave up on subduing Shenzhen. In the beginning, Shenzhen naturally looked down on them. Although the battle god sect was strong, they were still inferior to Shenzhen. However, when the battle god sect had 6 rank 10 quasi-saint experts, they became arrogant and started to find trouble with Shenzhen everywhere. However, Shenzhen wasn't someone to be trifled with. When Ling and the others naturally reacted accordingly. However, very quickly, the battle god sect's strength became stronger and stronger. In the end, there were even 10 rank 10 quasi-saint experts. This kind of strength had far surpassed Shenzhen's. Shenzhen was no longer a match for the battle god sect. At this time, other than Primeval College, the other 3 academies started to support the battle god sect. If it wasn't for Primeval College, Fan Family, and other powerful forces supporting Shenzhen, Shenzhen would have been destroyed long ago. Even so, the battle god sect's people continued to find trouble with Shenzhen. Once Shenzhen's people left the Holy City or Holy Mountain, the battle god sect's people would come to cause trouble, humiliate, or kill. Small-scale conflicts were endless. In the end, Shenzhen's people were constantly suppressed and didn't dare to leave their own territory. Moreover, under the threat of the battle god sect, the forces that were originally on good terms with Shenzhen gradually distanced themselves from Shenzhen, even severing their relationship with Shenzhen, who asked the battle god sect to become the 5th major force outside of the 4 academies. No one dared to offend them. Even Shenzhen's resources were taken away by the battle god sect. Regarding this, when Ling and the others were naturally indignant and had a stomach full of anger. However, in order to protect Shenzhen, they could only swallow their anger. Otherwise, with their character, even if they knew they weren't a match, they would definitely go on a killing spree. After hearing Wen Ling's words, Muron, you didn't get angry. Instead, he kept sneering. What a battle god sect. You even dare to suppress Shenzhen. You're really seeking your own death. Muron, you sneered. Killing intent flashed between his brows. Murderous intent filled the air. Holy Lord, we're not their match now. Wen Ling was afraid that Muron you would find trouble with the battle god sect in a moment of anger, so he immediately tried to persuade him. It's just a battle god sect. I can destroy them with a flip of my hand. Muron you gestured with his hands, his expression full of disdain. However, Wen Ling and the others had a suspicious look on their faces. Muron you suddenly laughed. Wen Ling, don't you guys understand me? I disappeared for 10,000 years. Do you guys really think I went sightseeing? Immediately go down and calculate the losses Shenzhen suffered in these 10,000 years. In a few days, I'll make the battle god sect pay back billions of times. Wen Ling and the others were all excited. They had been suppressed by the battle god sect for 10,000 years. They had a stomach full of anger. And now that Muron you was so confident, it was time for them to counterattack. In an instant, they couldn't help but think of those forces that offended Muron you and were killed by Muron you. They sneered in their hearts. The battle god sect definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Shenzhen's turtles, you guys are a bunch of trash. You don't even dare to leave the city? If I were you guys, I would have already killed myself by slamming my head against the wall. You guys are just wasting resources in this world. Just die while you can. an arrogant and egotistical voice spread into the holy city, followed by waves of laughter. Wen Ling and the others' faces instantly darkened. Even Murong Yu's face turned black. Wen Ling, kill them all, Murong Yu said with a black face. Killing intent flashed across Wen Ling's eyes. He didn't say anything and just disappeared in a flash. Then, Murong Yu heard waves of miserable screams coming from outside the holy city. In a few breaths' time, Wen Ling appeared in the main hall again. I haven't fought for a long time. I'm a little rusty. However, I feel much better after killing these bastards. Wen Ling laughed loudly, sweeping away his previous gloominess. Chapter 1141. What? Shenzhen actually killed our disciples? When Wen Ling killed the Battle God sect's disciples, the news immediately spread to the Battle God sect. After hearing the news, everyone in the Battle God sect was enraged. All these years, the Battle God sect was riding on the crest of success. Even the 4 great academies didn't dare to kill their people, let alone Shenzhen, who was being suppressed by them. In an instant, the Battle God sect's people were enraged. All of them charged towards the holy city. Battle God sect's bastards, if you dare to come within 10,000 miles of the holy city, it's a provocation. Kill without mercy. When the people from the Battle God Church rushed over with murderous intent, they heard a loud and clear voice coming from the holy city. Shenzhen is courting death. How dare he be so arrogant? The Battle God sect's people sneered. However, no one hesitated. They all flew towards the holy city. Looks like you're all here to die. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wishes. Wen Ling's indifferent voice spread far and wide. At the same time, he made his move. Terrifying energy shot out from his hands, tearing the void apart. Like sharp arrows, it crossed billions of space-time and locked onto the Battle God sect's people. Pooh! 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 Instantly, balls of nothingness exploded in the void and on the ground. They were like blood-colored fireworks. They were very bright and beautiful. None of the Battle God sect's people were spared. Anyone who came within 10,000 miles of the holy city was killed. These people were just ordinary powerhouses. How could they block Wen Ling's attack? A rank 10 quasi-saint. What's going on with Shenzhen? He's usually suppressed by the Battle God sect. Why is he so powerful today? He killed so many people from the Battle God sect? Could it be that they're going to explode? Seeing this scene, many people started to ponder. While these people were doubtful and confused, Shenzhen's disciples were excited. They had been suppressed all these years and had long suppressed their anger. Now, though Wen Ling finally made a move, although they didn't do it themselves, they still vented their anger. However, the Battle God Church was incomparably furious. However, because of Wen Ling's actions, although the people from the Battle God Church were furious, they didn't dare to step within 10,000 miles of the holy city. Shenzhen, Wen Ling, you're really something. A rank 10 quasi-saint actually dared to kill an ordinary disciple of our true God sect. A middle-aged man with a murderous aura and surging chi and blood flew over from afar. Holy Lord, this person is one of the 10 super experts of the War God sect, Yang Sheng, the protector of the true God sect, and a rank 10 quasi-saint. In the holy city, after seeing the newcomer, Wen Ling hurriedly introduced Yang Sheng's identity to Murong Yu. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. From today onwards, the true God religion will have 9 super experts, or even fewer. As he spoke, Murong Yu had already soared into the air and headed outside. Wen Ling and the rest followed closely behind him, stepping out of the sacred city. Holy Lord is back. When they saw Murong Yu soar into the air, the Shenzhen disciples in the holy city were first stunned. Then they reacted. Then they all cheered. Because of Murong Yu's sudden disappearance, their holy city was suppressed by the Battle God Church. Because of their worship of Murong Yu, they all believed that as long as Murong Yu was around, the people from the Battle God Church wouldn't dare to suppress them. On the contrary, no one in the entire realm of gods dared to provoke Murong Yu. Therefore, even though there were rumors that Murong Yu had already died, the disciples of Shenzhen still believed that Murong Yu wasn't dead. They all believed that Murong Yu would return one day and lead them to a massacre. Because of this, even though Shenzhen had been suppressed by the people from the Battle God Church for tens of thousands of years, no one left the Shenzhen. Holy Lord is back. The Battle God Church is in for a tragedy this time. The disciples of Shenzhen were extremely excited. All of them soared into the air and followed behind Murong Yu, shooting out of the city. Seeing Murong Yu and the rest rushing over, Yang Sheng, who was floating in the air, couldn't help but frown slightly. Then, a mocking expression flashed across his face. I was wondering who it was. So it's Shenzhen's Holy Lord. May I ask, Holy Lord Murong, are you leading everyone out to surrender? Ha ha ha. You're only surrendering now? Our Battle God Church doesn't need this kind of trash anymore. Before Yang Sheng finished speaking, the disciples of the Battle God Church behind him started laughing loudly. Idiots, you'll cry in the future. Seeing the arrogant and disdainful looks of the people from the Battle God Church, the disciples of Shenzhen all felt disdain in their hearts. These people were indeed nouveau riche. Their faces were disgusting. After the disciples of the Battle God Church laughed for a while, Yang Sheng looked at Wenling and said indifferently, Wenling, you killed my Battle God Church's disciples. You should commit suicide and admit your guilt. Hiss! Hearing Yang Sheng's words, everyone present was stunned. What was domineering? This was domineering. Wenling did kill some disciples of the Battle God Church, but Wenling was a top expert of the divine realm, the 10th stage quasi-saint. Even if he killed more disciples of the Battle God Church, those dead disciples couldn't be compared to Wenling. The Battle God Church actually wanted him to commit suicide? Otherwise, there's no need for your Shenzhen to continue existing in the divine realm, Yang Sheng said indifferently. Everyone sucked in a cold breath again. They finally knew what the Battle God Church was planning. They wanted to use this opportunity to completely eliminate Shenzhen. The Battle God Church had always wanted to eliminate Shenzhen. This was something that everyone knew. However, Shenzhen wasn't an independent force because he had the support of Primeval College and the Fan family behind him. Therefore, the Battle God Church had never found a reason to work together to eliminate Shenzhen. However, today, Wenling actually made a move. This gave the Battle God Church a reason to eliminate Shenzhen. Murong Yu furrowed his brows as he felt extremely displeased. This Yang Sheng was too arrogant. He actually dared to be domineering in front of him. He was simply courting death. I forgot that sect leader Shenzhen Murong Yu is here. Murong Yu, do you want to disband Shenzhen and protect Wenling, or do you want the Battle God Church to help you make the decision? Yang Sheng looked at Murong Yu with contempt. Although Murong Yu was Shenzhen's disciple, he was only a heavenly venerable. Yang Sheng had the right to look down on him. Of course, this was what he thought. The Battle God Church's leader is barely qualified to talk to me. As for you, you're not qualified. I'll give you 10 breaths of time. Get out of the holy city immediately. Go back and ask your so-called leader to prepare enough resources that I'm satisfied with and personally deliver them to my door to apologize. Otherwise, bear the consequences. Hearing Murong Yu's words, everyone felt that Murong Yu was strong. However, compared to Yang Sheng, he was much weaker. After all, his strength and realm were there for all to see. What a joke! Yang Sheng sneered. 3 breaths of time. After 3 breaths of time, all of you will die. Looks like your Battle God Church isn't willing to apologize. Fine, I'll kill you first. Murong Yu's face suddenly turned cold and murderous. Yang Sheng and the other disciples of the Battle God Church couldn't help but laugh out loud. Even the others felt that Murong Yu was joking. A heavenly venerable killing a level 10 quasi-saint? If this wasn't a joke, then what was? Only Shenzhen's people firmly believed Murong Yu's words. This was because they all knew that Murong Yu had always been someone who did what he said. I'll just stand here and not move. I want to see how you're going to kill me. Yang Sheng crossed his arms and looked at Murong Yu with disdain. Killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken or a dog. Murong Yu sneered. With a flash, he teleported and appeared in front of Yang Sheng. Yang Sheng originally had a look of contempt and disdain, waiting for Murong Yu to kill him. He didn't intend to dodge, nor did he intend to resist. He wanted to humiliate Shenzhen's holy lord. However, just as Murong Yu suddenly disappeared, an extremely strong aura of death instantly enveloped his heart. Yang Sheng was taken aback. With a thought, he was about to retreat. However, it was too late. Die! Murong Yu suddenly appeared in front of Yang Sheng. Before Yang Sheng could react, he had already punched him in the chest. At this moment, Murong Yu was a level 10 quasi-saint. Both of them were in the same realm, but Murong Yu's body was at the peak of the divine grade, while Yang Sheng's body hadn't even reached the low grade. The gap was too big. Hence, when Murong Yu's punch landed on Yang Sheng's chest, the huge force caused Yang Sheng to explode. However, exploding didn't mean that he was killed. With Yang Sheng's strength, he could reform his divine body with just a thought. However, why would Murong Yu given the time to reform his divine body? With a sneer, Murong Yu took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab the sky. Whoosh! Before Yang Sheng's body could reform, it was already shattered by the force from Murong Yu's hand. Furthermore, Murong Yu had grabbed his soul in his hand. How was this possible? You're just a heavenly master. How can you defeat me in one move? This can't be real. Yang Sheng's soul roared angrily and struggled in Murong Yu's hand, unwilling to give up. I've said that killing you is as easy as killing a chicken or a dog. Murong Yu smiled disdainfully and exerted strength in his hand. With a bang, Yang Sheng's soul was crushed by him. The moment Yang Sheng was killed, Murong Yu's realm also rapidly regressed, returning to the heavenly master realm in an instant. However, the scene of him killing Yang Sheng with a single punch deeply shocked everyone present. Even Wen Ling was shocked. What's going on? Sect leader Shenzhen is actually so strong? He killed a level 10 quasi-saint with one punch? Everyone's faces were filled with shock. As for those from the War God Church, their faces were drained of blood and their bodies were trembling. They were all frightened by the strength that Murong Yu had displayed. Chapter 1142. Battle God Sect's people are pretty good. Go back and tell your sect leader to prepare resources that will satisfy Shenzhen and compensate Shenzhen for his losses these years. Also, tell your sect leader to personally come and apologize within 3 days. Otherwise, the Battle God Sect will be annihilated in 3 days. After Murong Yu killed Yang Sheng, Wen Ling's voice spread far and wide, ringing clearly in everyone's ears. Everyone's expression changed, especially the Battle God Sect's people. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. Now, get out of here. Before your sect leader apologizes, if I see anyone from the Battle God Sect near the Holy City again, kill them without mercy. Hearing Wen Ling's words, the Battle God Sect's disciples felt as if they had been pardoned. They all turned around and flew out. They were afraid that if they were one step slower, they would be killed by Shenzhen's people. Holy City's City Lord Manor. Holy Lord, there are already people entering the Holy City. Our Holy City will soon return to its previous prosperity. Wen Ling stood in the main hall and reported to Murong Yu. Murong Yu nodded. Previously, when Shenzhen was suppressed by the Battle God Sect, those factions didn't dare to get involved with Shenzhen. Now that Shenzhen was so powerful, they naturally didn't fear getting involved with Shenzhen. However, there were still many people who were observing. Because the Battle God Sect was too powerful, as long as the Battle God Sect wasn't defeated, they didn't dare to get too close to Shenzhen. Holy Lord, will the Battle God Sect's sect leader come and apologize within 3 days and compensate enough resources? A quasi-saint asked Murong Yu. Before Murong Yu said anything, Wen Ling sneered, the Battle God Sect definitely won't apologize and compensate. Then, the other quasi-saint looked at Murong Yu in confusion. In fact, they all knew that the Battle God Sect wouldn't compensate or apologize. However, they did not understand why Murong Yu was acting like this. Even if Murong Yu was strong enough to kill a 10th Order Quasi-Saint, the Battle God Sect still had 9 10th Order Quasi-Saints. How many 10th Order quasi-saints did Shenzhen have? Could it be that Murong Yu wanted to use their current strength to fight against the Battle God sect? Moreover, apart from the quasi-saint who had more top-notch quasi-saint than Shenzhen, the average quasi-saint and even the average powerhouse far surpassed Shenzhen. This was something Shenzhen could not compare to. In a head-on clash, Shenzhen was no match for the War God sect. Without an excuse, how can we destroy the Battle God sect? And this time, I want to give them time to kill Quasi-Saint. When the time comes, I'll kill them all in one fell swoop. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light, and his killing intense soared. Holy Lord, with just a few of us. Moreover, even if we make a move against the Battle God sect, the other 3 academies will definitely interfere. Those 3 academies have long been unhappy with Shenzhen, when Ling said hesitantly. It was also because of these reasons that Shenzhen had been constantly suppressed by the Battle God sect all these years without any resistance. After destroying the 3 academies, we'll eradicate the 3 academies as well, Murong Yu said indifferently, but his voice was incomparably cold. Sect leader Shenzhen made a powerful move and killed a 10th Order quasi-saint from the Battle God sect with a single punch. He also requested the Battle God sect's leader to come and apologize within 3 days and compensate Shenzhen with resources that will satisfy him. Not long after, the news spread out in the human encampment in the eastern wasteland as if it had grown wings. It even quickly spread throughout the 4 continents of the Divine Realm. In an instant, countless people knew that Shenzhen and the Battle God sect were going to fight. Regarding Shenzhen and Murong Yu's strength, the people of the Divine Realm were definitely not unfamiliar with it. However, the Battle God sect was much stronger than Shenzhen. There was no doubt about that. What did Shenzhen have to go against the Battle God sect? In an instant, the entire Divine Realm was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone was looking forward to the day when the 2 super forces would fight. Murong Yu's powerful return. The Battle God sect is probably going to suffer. The Battle God sect has been tyrannical and arrogant all these years. I really hope that Shenzhen will kill them all. Yeah, the Battle God sect is too much of a bully. They even think of themselves as the strongest force of the human race. They want everyone to submit to them. In comparison, Shenzhen won't do that. Although Murong Yu is more tyrannical, that's only towards his enemies. Everyone was discussing fervently. Many people leaned towards Shenzhen's side. This was because the War God sect was simply too notorious. However, although they leaned towards Shenzhen, they also knew how powerful the Battle God sect was. Would Shenzhen be a match for the Battle God sect? Everyone was looking forward to it. Eastern Wilderness, Holy City. Murong Yu, you didn't even tell me that you were back. You're really not a good brother. Fangwa's entire family was here. The one who spoke was Fan Tong. I don't have time yet. I've just returned, and I'm already disgusted by the Battle God sect. I was planning to pay you guys a visit after dealing with the Battle God sect, Murong Yu said with a smile. Murong Yu, you're too reckless this time. The Battle God sect isn't what it seems on the surface. Although your Shenzhen is strong, you're not a match for the Battle God sect. Fangwa frowned and said worriedly. Could it be that they have more rank 10 quasi-saint? Murong Yu only smiled faintly. That's not the case. How can there be so many rank 10 quasi-saint in the God Realm? However, if you guys start a war this time, Abyssal College will definitely backstab you and completely destroy Shenzhen. A cold light flashed past Murong Yu's brows. He sneered in his heart. I'm waiting for them to make a move. However, since you've decided to start a war with the Battle God sect, our Fan family will naturally support you. Fangwa looked at Murong Yu and said in a low voice. His dignified square face was filled with determination. Murong Yu shook his head and said with a smile, the Battle God sect will definitely be destroyed. However, I'll need you guys to intervene. Let our Shenzhen take care of this battle. Little Yu, your Shenzhen strength. Madame Fan frowned and said unhappily, Uncle Andy, you don't need to worry. I never do things that I'm not confident in. Murong Yu gave them a confident smile. Father, Mother, since Murong Yu is so confident, I think you guys don't need to do anything. This guy won't throw his life away, right? Fan Tong interrupted at this moment. Fangua and Fangua were speechless. What was Fan Tong saying? Kid, it seems like you guys don't need our primeval college's help. At this moment, a voice was heard. Following that, Xiang Sungwu walked in. If the saint from Primeval College is willing to help, I can't ask for anything more. Murong Yu smiled. Although the saint from Primeval College was a fake saint, he was still a saint. His strength was many times stronger than a 10th rank quasi-saint. If he were to intervene, the Battle God sect would be instantly annihilated no matter how strong they were. This was also why the Battle God sect didn't dare to touch Murong Yu. The Fan family, Primeval College, and other powerhouses and factions that were on good terms with Murong Yu all came to help Murong Yu. However, they were all rejected by Murong Yu. On the contrary, Murong Yu invited them to stay and watch a good show in 3 days. These people came to help, so of course they wouldn't leave. Even if Murong Yu wanted them to leave, they wouldn't. While the Holy City was welcoming powerhouses and factions, the Battle God sect was also welcoming waves of powerhouses. In the Battle God Shrine, the Battle God sect's leader, the Battle God, sat on the main seat. However, there were only 3 people in the shrine. If Xiang Sungwu was here, he would be able to recognize them at a glance. They were the big shots from Abyssal College, Wildland College, and Great Desolation College. Battle God, with Murong Yu's provocation this time, I believe that Primeval College won't be able to continue protecting them. This time, we must completely uproot them. A big shot from Abyssal College looked at the Battle God and said in a deep voice. The Battle God was wearing a golden robe and had a ferocious golden beast mask on his face. From afar, one could see that the golden mask was emitting strange waves of energy. Once a spiritual sense spread out, it would be forced back by these fluctuations. Because of this, no one had ever seen the Battle God's true face. Even if Primeval College interferes, they won't be able to stop Shenzhen and Murong Yu's destruction. The Battle God's hoarse voice spread far and wide. It was a bit cold and bitter, making people feel uncomfortable. However, the people from the 3 great colleges seemed to have gotten used to it and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Primeval College has a saint. If they interfered, the big shot from Wildland College frowned and said, "No need to worry about Primeval College. If they dare to make a move this time, I'll let them see what power is. I, the Battle God, live up to my name." The Battle God said indifferently. His hoarse voice was filled with disdain. The big shots from the 3 great colleges were stunned. They all knew that the Battle God was powerful. However, the Battle God wasn't even afraid of Saint. Could it be that he was also a saint? This time, you don't need to make a move. Once I kill Murong Yu and Shenzhen's other quasi-saint, you guys just need to erase Shenzhen from the God Realm. Hearing this, the 3 big shots couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Murong Yu was really too powerful. If the 10th rank quasi-saint from their 3 great colleges were killed by Murong Yu, then their losses would be too great. Although they wanted to kill Shenzhen and Murong Yu, they hoped that the Battle God Church would make a move and not themselves. That way, they would be able to reap the benefits without losing anything. Leave. The Battle God waved his hand and said indifferently. Although the 3 big shots from the 3 great colleges were a bit unhappy with the Battle God's arrogance, they still quickly left. After the big shots from the 3 great colleges left the Battle God Temple, several experts appeared one after another. They were all 10th rank quasi-saint. Pay close attention to the 3 great colleges. Want to reap the benefits? The Battle God laughed coldly. His face under the mask was somewhat sinister. Chapter 1143. Sacred Mountain, Sacred Palace. Murong Yu frowned as he looked at Zhao, Jiqing, and the others in the palace, his face gloomy. Murong Yu and the others didn't look too good either. After giving the War God Church a deadline, Murong Yu spent a day receiving the experts from all over. Then he returned to Sacred Mountain. Sacred Mountain was transformed from Flying Cloud Cliff, just like the Fan family's floating mountain. Even a rank 10 quasi-saint couldn't force his way in. Thus, even though the war god church suppressed Shenzhen everywhere, they couldn't do anything to anyone in Sacred Mountain. However, when Murong Yu returned to Shenzhen, he found out that Murong Xian and Murong Yi were no longer in the god realm. After Murong Yu entered the desolate world, the two brothers Murong Xian entered the desolate world one after another. The two brothers weren't weak. They both broke through to the heavenly venerate realm before entering the desolate world. Thus, Zhao Jiqing and the others weren't worried about their departure. A heavenly venerate was enough to roam the god realm. As long as their luck wasn't too bad and they didn't encounter a quasi-saint or some other danger zone, they should be fine. However, Murong Yu's face darkened when he found out. So what if they were heavenly venerates? Even a rank 10 quasi-saint like Yang Qin would be suppressed to the heavenly venerate realm after entering the desolate world, becoming an ant-like existence. Thinking of the countless experts from the god realm who entered the desolate world and were captured as slaves by the tribes. Perhaps Murong Xian and Murong Yi had already become slaves of some tribes. Murong Yi didn't care if others became slaves. However, those two were his sons. He couldn't just ignore them. Fortunately, their soul jade slips didn't show any abnormalities. At least, their lives weren't in danger. When they heard Murong Yu roughly describe the desolate world's environment, Zhao Jiqing and the others' faces instantly changed. In particular, Murong Xian and Murong Yi's birth mothers, Zhao Jiqing and Mu Liyue, were so frightened that their faces turned pale. What should we do? Murong, why don't you go into the desolate world and save them? I don't even know what kind of suffering they're going through right now. Zhao Jiqing panicked and looked at Murong Yu with a pleading look in her eyes. It was the same for Mu Liyue. In fact, it was the same for everyone else. The two of them should be fine. Murong Yu gritted his teeth and said after pondering for a moment, how could he not want to enter the desolate world to save the two of them? However, the desolate world was neither big nor small. Finding a single person was easier said than done. Moreover, there were still 2 days before Shenzhen's final battle. In truth, Murong Yu didn't need to fight the battle god church. After all, killing the desolate world was the priority now. Otherwise, once the eastern wilderness revived, they would all be in trouble. However, if they didn't destroy the battle god church, even if Murong Yu told them about the desolate world, the others might not be willing to believe them. Moreover, to kill the eastern wilderness, the two worlds had to work together. In other words, the divine world had to be unified before they could truly work together. Otherwise, who knew if a thorn like the battle god church would cause trouble behind the scenes at a crucial moment? Moreover, it wasn't just the battle god church. After destroying the battle god church, Murong Yu wanted to unify the human race and the demon race as quickly as possible. Thus, he couldn't leave the divine world and didn't have time to find Murong Xian and his brother. But the desolate world is too dangerous. You can't let them stay in the desolate world like this. Mu Liyue and the others felt a wave of fear when they thought about the possibility of the eastern wilderness reviving at any time. Because once the eastern wilderness revives, Murong Xian and the others in the desolate world will definitely die. How about this? Bring me to destroy the battle god church first, then make a trip to the desolate world. Murong Yu pondered for a long time before saying. Because of the matter with Murong Xian and his brother, Murong Yu wasn't in a good mood this time. However, Gu Xiaoyang and Su Hegi had ascended from the immortal world. Now, they were passionately in love with Murong Yin and Murong Lin respectively. With their aptitude, it wasn't a problem for them to ascend to a higher realm. The good news for these two couples was gradually approaching. Murong Yu only stayed in the sacred mountain for a day before returning to the eastern wilderness sacred city. The sacred city was very lively now, and many people had arrived. These people either supported Shenzhen and Murong Yu or came to help. However, most of them were here to watch the show. However, they didn't enter the sacred city. They didn't even go near it. They were all afraid of being implicated in the battle between the holy city and the war god sect. There is no lack of quasi-saint level existences in the holy city, except for the forces like Primeval College and the Fan family, who were on good terms with Murong Yu or the quasi-saint. There were also some who had been treated by Murongyu before. They were all here to help Murongyu. However, no matter who they were all rejected by Murongyu. He only told them to watch a good show. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the 4th day, the people from the war god sect finally appeared. A large group of people rushed out of the war god sect like a flood, breaking through everything and arriving outside the holy city. In front of these people, several quasi-saint level experts were carrying a dazzling palanquin, and on the palanquin sat the leader of the war god church. War god. The golden-robed war god sat on the palanquin, the mask on his face looking even more ferocious. A gloomy and cold aura emanated from his body, sweeping in all directions. Beside the palanquin, there were 9 10th-stage quasi-saint level experts. Each of them had a powerful aura, surging blood chi and soaring blood chi. Behind them were dozens of quasi-saint level experts. Just these experts alone showed how terrifying the war god church's strength was. Moreover, there was also an unknown war god. What arrogance! When they saw the war god sitting on the palanquin, many people couldn't help but secretly despise him, especially the people from the holy city. Their faces were filled with disdain. Murongyu, hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, we'll kill without mercy. A 10th-stage quasi-saint stepped out. His expression was indifferent as he looked at the holy city in front of him with disdain. Actually, before the war god church arrived, many people had already flown out of the holy city. However, Shenzhen didn't appear. Where are Murongyu and the rest? Fangua and the rest looked at each other, because they suddenly realized that Murongyu had disappeared without them knowing. The Holy Lord has ordered that before he returns, all disciples of Shenzhen are forbidden to take half a step out of the holy city. Those who disobey will be sent to the holy city immediately, Wen Ling said in a low voice. Where's Murongyu? Fan Tong asked gloomily. The war god had already killed his way to the holy city, but Murongyu had disappeared at the last minute? Wasn't this a bit too much? People from the war god church, listen up. The Holy Lord has some matters to attend to now and doesn't have time to entertain you. He said to ask your church leader, the war god, to apologize in front of the city gate and leave behind enough resources as compensation. After the 10th-stage quasi-saint from a war god church shouted coldly, Wen Ling's voice rang out and spread far and wide. Ha ha ha! Hearing Wen Ling's voice, everyone present roared with laughter. What did Murongyu mean by this? Was he trying to intimidate the war god church? The people from the war god church were instantly enraged. Even the quasi-saint were furious. However, even though they were so angry that they wanted nothing more than to charge forward and kill him, they didn't do anything. However, they didn't do anything and just looked at the war god on the palanquin. The war god's aura didn't fluctuate at all. Because of the mask, his expression couldn't be seen. However, the people around the war god felt the temperature in the air drop by quite a bit. The war god's eyes also became extremely cold. However, the war god only looked at the holy city in the distance and didn't say anything for a long time. People from the war god church, didn't you come to apologize? War god, if you don't apologize now, when will you? Don't tell me you want to apologize in front of the Holy Lord. If that's the case, you might need to wait for half a day, because the Holy Lord really doesn't have time now. Wen Ling's voice rang out again. The people from the war god church were enraged again. People from Shenzhen, listen up. The war god came this time to subdue the Shenzhen. I'll give you 2 choices: submit to the war god church or be completely annihilated. The 10th rank quasi-saint who spoke before saw that the war god didn't have any intention to speak and could only speak again. Just a bunch of mobs, and you want to subdue me, the Shenzhen? You make everyone laugh their heads off. A quasi-saint from the Shenzhen sneered. What's going on? Seeing this scene, the surrounding people couldn't help but feel puzzled. The war god did appear, but the sect leader of the Shenzhen was nowhere to be seen. Right now, both sides were sticking to their own words. One wanted them to apologize, while the other wanted them to submit. Give them 2 hours. If they don't submit after 2 hours, kill them without mercy. At this moment, the war god's hoarse voice slowly rang out. I'll give you 2 hours to consider. After 2 hours, the Shenzhen will be completely erased from the god realm. It's best for unrelated people to leave the holy city immediately, or else the sword will be merciless. At the same time, the War God Church welcomes everyone to join us. Bah, the War God Church will be annihilated, and you still want people to join you? What are you scheming? Aren't you just sending people to their deaths? Shenzhen's disciples immediately sneered. However, the War God Church's people were all silent. Only time continued to pass. The people in the holy city began to become restless, because 2 hours had almost passed, and Murong Yu still hadn't appeared. At that time, under the attacks of so many quasi-saint, how could the holy city be protected? Thus, people began to leave the holy city. However, even more people chose to stay in the holy city. They chose to believe in Murong Yu. Time's up, kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Don't leave a chicken or a dog alive. After 2 hours, the war god's hoarse voice slowly rang out. So. The quasi-saint experts of the War God Church immediately flew out and charged towards the holy city. Chapter 1144. 9/10th rank quasi-saint and dozens of quasi-saints' auras soared into the sky. They turned into streaks of light and charged towards the holy city. Seeing this scene, the ordinary disciples of the War God Church all cheered excitedly. On the other hand, the people of the holy city all looked nervous. The ones who looked nervous weren't Shenzhen's disciples, but the people from Primeval College who came to help Shenzhen. They were all very nervous, but they also felt strange, because they saw that even though the War God Church's people were charging over, the Shenzhen's disciples beside them looked calm, as if they had a card up their sleeves. Why aren't you worried at all? In the end, someone couldn't help but ask the Shenzhen's disciples. Worried about what? Our Holy Lord will definitely have a way. We believe in our Holy Lord, the Shenzhen's disciples said calmly. There was no trace of nervousness or worry. The person who asked was speechless. He looked at the Shenzhen's disciple helplessly. Why are you so confident in your Holy Lord? Aren't you afraid that your Holy Lord can't handle it? All this time, what has our Holy Lord been unable to handle? The Shenzhen's disciple looked at the person who asked with disdain. The person who asked was speechless. They're charging over. Where's Murong Yu? Seeing that the War God Church's people were about to reach the holy city, Fangua couldn't help but frown. He was a bit anxious. He even wanted to soar into the sky and fight them. Family head fan, you just need to watch the show. The Holy Lord has instructed that you can't fight today. Otherwise, you'll be looking down on Shenzhen. Wenling's voice slowly spread out, but it made those people depressed. Murong Yu didn't appear himself, and he didn't help them. What was going on? Could it be that Murong Yu wanted to trap them all here and let them be killed by the War God Church's people? Of course, that was impossible. Moreover, seeing how confident Wenling and the others were, Fangua and the others did not make a move in the end. They wanted to see what Murong Yu was up to. It was a long story, but in fact, these were just a few momentary actions. At this moment, the quasi-saint from the War God Church had already rushed over. Auras burst out from their bodies like stormy waves, shattering the void and rolling over like a torrent, trying to squeeze the sacred city to the point of bursting. Kill! A rank 10 quasi-saint bellowed and struck out with his palm. Suddenly, an incomparably huge palm, as huge as a sacred mountain, appeared out of nowhere. As soon as the giant palm appeared, it carried a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth. It locked onto the entire holy city and slammed down. Rumble. Everywhere the enormous palm passed, space shattered, and even the sky seemed to be split apart. Its momentum was shocking, and it shook the world. At the same time, the other quasi-saint from the Church of the War God acted as well. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying power enveloped the entire holy city. At this moment, the hearts of most people in the holy city were enveloped by an intense aura of death. Seeing this scene, everyone in the holy city could not help but change their expressions. Even Shenzhen's disciples finally had a change in expression. Although they trusted Murongyu, trust was one thing. No matter who it was, they could not help but change their expressions in the face of such power. War God, you're too impatient. The enormous palm and the power of the other quasi-saint were about to hit the holy city. Even the holy city was trembling from the terrifying power. However, at this moment, a faint voice suddenly sounded from the void. At the same time, a figure suddenly appeared out of thin air beside the rank 10 quasi-saint from the War God Church who attacked first. Bang! The rank 10 quasi-saint was unable to resist at all. He did not even have time to react before he was blasted apart by the person who suddenly appeared. Holy Lord! When they saw the powerhouse who appeared out of thin air, the Shenzhen's disciples in the holy city could not help but shout, "Die!" After Murongyu blasted the rank 10 powerhouse with a punch, he roared and took another step forward. At the same time, he punched out again. Bang! The void exploded and the rank 10 quasi-saint soul that was trying to escape was directly annihilated. Clean and efficient, he killed the rank 10 quasi-saint in 2 moves. When the people on the ground saw this scene, they could not help but be shocked. They were all shocked by Murongyu's strength, especially the rank 10 quasi-saint. They were especially shocked. They were all rank 10 quasi-saint. They all knew how difficult it was to kill a rank 10 quasi-saint. However, Murongyu killed a rank 10 quasi-saint so easily. In fact, they did not know how monstrous Murongyu's physical body was. If they had Murongyu's monstrous physical body, they could also kill a rank 10 quasi-saint with 1 punch. Oof. The war god, sitting on the palanquin in the distance, snorted when he saw this scene. The aura on his body became colder and colder. However, he did not say anything. He probably had no intention of making a move. Come out. Let them see Shenzhen's true strength. After killing the rank 10 quasi-saint with 1 punch, Murongyu stopped borrowing power. Hearing Murongyu's words, everyone present hesitated. What did Murongyu mean? Could it be that Shenzhen had more powerhouses? However, this question did not need any answer, because Murongyu gave the answer directly. Following Murongyu's voice, figures stepped out from the void around Murongyu. 1, 2, 3, more than 100 quasi-saint. Among them, there were 14 rank 10 quasi-saint. Is this Shenzhen's strength? Is this Shenzhen's true strength? Seeing the quasi-saint powerhouses appear out of thin air, many people were shocked. Boom, boom, boom. After these people appeared, they immediately made a move. They exploded with powerful energy and blasted away the forces bombarding the holy city. However, they did not attack the war god sect's powerhouses. Because of the sudden appearance of Shenzhen and the other powerhouses, the war god sect's powerhouses involuntarily stopped in their tracks and stopped their attacks. What's going on? The battle that was on the verge of breaking out suddenly stopped, as if nothing had happened. You must be very curious, right? Why didn't I appear? I believe you all know that something happened to me. Yes, because of my sudden disappearance, Shenzhen has been oppressed by the war god sect for a whole 10,000 years. 3 days ago, I asked the war god to personally apologize and compensate us with resources that we are satisfied with. However, at that time, I knew that the war god would not do that. Today, it seems that I was right. Murongyu returned to the holy city and stood on the city wall. He looked at the war god in the distance with a smile on his face. Seeing Murongyu's smile, the war god in the distance suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. He felt that something was wrong. I believe everyone is confused. Why did I do this when I knew that the war god would definitely not apologize or compensate us? I did this for 2 reasons. The first reason is that whoever dares to oppress me, Shenzhen, I will make them pay back 1,000 times over. No matter who it is the same. Therefore, the war god sect is no exception. However, what if they're not willing to give me resources? I have no choice. They won't give me anything, so I can only go and take it myself. Therefore, I used half a day to move the war god sect's treasury away. Although the war god sect has only been established for a short time, They have taken many treasures from other factions, right? Their treasure trove is richer than I imagined. The war god frowned slightly. He felt that Murong, you could not have reached the war god sect's treasury. However, the uneasy feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. He felt that Murong Yu's words were true. Ha! Shenzhen's holy lord is like this? You only know how to boast. You think you could take away our treasury? What a joke. A war god sect disciple laughed loudly. His voice was filled with disdain and disdain. It was not only the war god sect's people who did not believe it. Even Shenzhen's people did not believe it. Was the war god sect treasury so easy to take away? They all thought that Murong Yu was boasting. Murong Yu laughed coldly in his heart. He flipped his hand, and a cold light flashed past. Then, a dagger that shone with a threatening cold light appeared in his palm. The dagger was not very long. It was only the length of a palm. However, it was in the shape of a dragon. Although it was placed in Murong Yu's palm, it looked like a divine dragon dancing in the sky. A vast aura that seemed to come from ancient times was emitted from the dagger and rushed into the sky. Faintly discernible, oppressive, and drawn-out dragon roars could be heard continuously. Evil warding dragon roar blade. When he saw the dagger, the war god who had been sitting on the palanquin in the distance exclaimed in shock. His entire body abruptly shot up from the palanquin, his killing intent bursting forth. His eyes seemed to pierce through the sky. They passed through billions of time and space and landed on Murong Yu's body. Hiss! Seeing the war god's huge reaction, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. Murong Yu couldn't have really taken away the war god sect's treasury, right? Even if he didn't take away their treasury, he must have visited the war god sect. This evil warding dragon roar blade made the war god's expression change. It was definitely not an ordinary item. In reality, this evil warding dragon roar blade was the war god sect's treasure. It had always been kept in the deepest part of their treasury. No one could take it out of the treasury, not even the war god. This was because the evil warding dragon roar blade was the symbol of the war god sect. It was a supreme existence. Now, it appeared in Murong Yu's hands. What did this mean? It meant that Murong Yu really took away their treasury. Could this evil warding dragon roar blade be fake? Could it be that Murong Yu made it? Maybe it was fake. However, with the war god's peerless strength, how could he be fooled by a fake divine weapon? That was impossible. Therefore, everyone was stunned for a moment as they looked at Murong Yu with astonishment in their eyes. Chapter 1145. It was hard to imagine how Murong Yu managed to clear out the treasury of the Battle God sect. The treasury of the Battle God sect must have many restrictions and formations protecting it. Moreover, there should be many quasi-saint level experts. Yet, it was cleared out by Murong Yu in just half a day. That was too shocking. Could it be that the clearing out of the treasury of the shadowless organization was also Murong Yu's doing? Suddenly, many people recalled that many years ago, the treasury of some factions had been cleared out. No one knew who cleared out the treasury, but today, they thought of Murong Yu. Are you surprised? This blade of the evil warding dragon's cry should be the symbol of your Battle God sect, right? However, today it belongs to me, Shenzhen. Battle God, you can go back now. Seeing Battle God looking at him with killing intent, Murong Yu couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha! The disciples of Shenzhen in the holy city instantly laughed out loud. The depression of being suppressed by the Battle God sect for tens of thousands of years was swept away. It's indeed a good show. Fan Guo and the others smiled and nodded. Murong Yu's move, although he hadn't made a move yet, had already dealt a huge blow to the Battle God sect. It had greatly impacted the morale of the Battle God sect. Battle God stepped into the air and floated in the air. An extremely cold aura was emitted from his body. The space around him kept shattering, and the cold aura shot into the sky. It was extremely terrifying. Battle God's face couldn't be seen, but everyone could imagine how angry he was. Kill them. Murong Yu looked coldly at Battle God and suddenly roared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as Murong Yu's voice left his mouth, the quasi-saint in the holy city had already charged forward. Bang! 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 Caught off guard, some of the quasi-saint members of the War God Church were killed. One had to know that Shenzhen had over 100 quasi-saints, and the weakest of them was at least a Type 7 quasi-saint. Although the War God Church had a few dozen quasi-saints, their strength was uneven. Few of them had reached the Type 8 or Type 9 quasi-saint realm. Therefore, when Shenzhen's experts attacked, they simply couldn't resist these violent and terrifying attacks. Large numbers of them began to fall. Even the 8th 10th Order quasi-saint didn't have it easy. Shenzhen's side now had 16 10th Order quasi-saints, 2 against 1. Most importantly, Shenzhen's 10th Order quasi-saint strength was at the peak of the 10th Order quasi-saint. Thus, these people from the War God Church were immediately met with tragedy. Not long after, a 10th Order quasi-saint was killed. With each death, the War God Church's side burned a peak expert. On the other hand, Shenzhen's side had 2 more peak experts. As the battle continued, the Battle God Sect's experts retreated in defeat, one after another, being killed one after another. From beginning to end, the War God just quietly floated in the sky, coldly looking at Murong Yu's side. Even when he saw the 10th Order quasi-saints dying, he didn't have any intention of attacking. No one knew what the War God was doing, but the War God Church's members all had extremely gloomy expressions. They couldn't understand why the War God didn't attack. However, no one dared to say anything. Bang! 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 The War God Church's experts were killed one by one, but no one dared to retreat. They continued to fight Shenzhen's experts. However, as more and more people died, the War God Church's members decreased, and the speed of their deaths became faster and faster. In less than half a day, all the War God Church's quasi-saints experts were killed. Other than the few quasi-saints carrying the palanquin, there were no other quasi-saints from the War God Church. The War God Church is only SOSO. After the battle ended, the spectators finally reacted. Immediately, many people had the same thought. It's not that the War God Church is too weak, but that Shenzhen is too strong. There are more than 100 quasi-saints. I'm afraid even the 4 great academies can't find so many experts. After this battle, Shenzhen's position is on par with the 4 great academies. Other than Primeval College, the other 3 academies are probably no match for Shenzhen. The Chaos Shenzhen is probably the second strongest force in the human race. After this battle, many people clearly understood Shenzhen's strength. Many people felt that Shenzhen was already the strongest force apart from Primeval College. I heard that Murong Yu is extremely domineering and protective. Now that Shenzhen is getting stronger and stronger, this force definitely can't be provoked. Many people thought to themselves, Murong Yu, I still underestimated you. These must be Shenzhen's strongest forces, right? However, if this is all they have, then Shenzhen won't be able to escape death today. The War God's hoarse and unpleasant voice slowly spread out. At this moment, he slowly walked towards Murong Yu. Hearing this voice, everyone present was shocked. So many quasi-saints from the War God Church were killed, but this War God still didn't put Murong Yu in his eyes. Was this arrogance and ignorance, or did he really have the strength to kill Shenzhen? The leader of the War God Church was definitely not an idiot, nor would he be arrogant and ignorant. Then he really did have the ability to kill Shenzhen. However, how could he kill Murong Yu and Shenzhen by himself? Could he be a saint? Thinking of this, everyone present couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. If the War God was really a saint, then wouldn't killing Shenzhen be as easy as flipping his hand? Murong Yu slightly frowned, stepped forward, and slowly approached the War God. War God, I believe you're not an idiot. I'm just curious. How can you kill me, Shenzhen? Standing in front of the War God, Murong Yu said with an indifferent expression, You probably think that a rank 10 quasi-saint is a peak expert? You probably think that only Primeval College has saints in the entire God realm? The War God's voice was hoarse, but he couldn't help but emit a disdainful aura. Saint, hearing his voice, Everyone present was shocked once again. You're a saint? False saint? Morong slightly frowned. If the other party was really a false saint, then it would be difficult to deal with. Other than those who were also false saints, who else could be their match? Rank 10 quasi-saint? A false saint could kill a rank 10 quasi-saint with a single slap. It was only because the war god was a false saint that he didn't feel any pity for the deaths of those quasi-saints. Because to a false saint, no matter if it was a rank 10 quasi-saint or an ordinary god, they were all ants. I didn't expect you to know the term false saint. The war god took a step forward, as if he came from ancient times, shocking the heavens. Looking from afar, the war god's body seemed to emit an endless amount of golden light, dazzling and dazzling. Saint. The war god is actually a saint. The war god's sect's disciples were instantly excited, and all of them shouted. On the other hand, Shenzhen's people's faces were gloomy. Morong was strong, but there was a limit to how strong he was. He definitely wasn't a match for a false saint. You're really a false saint? Morong eyes flashed with a cold light. Nonsense. Morong, do you want to kill yourself, or do you want me to kill you personally? This is the choice I'm giving you. The war god looked at Morong, and his eyes flashed with a trace of hatred. At this moment, Morong face revealed a trace of a smile. At the same time, no one noticed that his hands had already secretly formed a series of obscure hand seals. If the war god was someone from the holy world, how could Morong still smile at this moment? He would probably have fled long ago. But a false saint? Morong wasn't afraid at all. Could it be that Morong has been scared silly? He can still smile at this time? Seeing Morong smile, everyone was stunned. They all felt that Morong had been scared silly. War god, you probably think you're invincible after becoming a saint. At the very least, you can do whatever you want in the holy world. But do you know that the saint of Primeval College rarely shows himself? Morong looked at the war god, and the smile on his face became even more brilliant. Oh, I'd like to hear your thoughts. The war god didn't seem to be in a hurry to kill Morong. Instead, he looked at Morong indifferently. As a false saint, I believe you more or less know the situation up there. I think you don't want to ascend, right? I admit that I'm far from being a match for a false saint, but I could send you up there. As Morong spoke, his face suddenly turned cold. Then, he suddenly struck out with both hands. Suddenly, hundreds of millions of hand seals shot out crazily, covering the sky and covering the earth as they attacked the war god. At this moment, the war god's calm face suddenly changed color. He felt a powerful and inexplicable force pulling him quickly, trying to pull him out of the holy world. What did you do? The war god roared and fiercely struck out with his palm. Carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, it fiercely slammed down on Morong. However, the terrifying pulling force grew stronger and stronger. His entire body was being pulled up into the sky. Even the power he struck out with was pulled back. Bang! When Morong struck out the night seal, he had already retreated as fast as he could. However, although he was fast, how could he compare to the speed of a false saint? Before he could even escape, he had already been hit by the aftershock of the false saint's power. At this moment, Morong felt as if he had been hit by a holy mountain. In an instant, the tearing pain madly stimulated his mind, and his entire body almost cracked, as if it was about to shatter. Fortunately, this was only the aftershock of the war god's palm. Otherwise, if he had been hit, Morong would probably have been annihilated. Moreover, that palm was only a hasty attack from a war god. It didn't even have 50% of his full strength. Chapter 1146. A powerful pulling force was exerted on War God's body, dragging War God up into the sky at high speed. It was pulling the War God to the saint's world. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Some people who didn't know the situation were even more confused. Those who knew what was going on were shocked. Morong was actually able to make a false saint ascend? How'd he know this method? Since he had the method, couldn't he send any false saint to the saint's world? From now on, those false saints would fear Murong Yu more than quasi-saint. Quasi-saint could still escape from Murong Yu. But if a false saint couldn't kill Murong Yu immediately, they would face the danger of being sent to the saint's world by Murong Yu. Streaks of terrifying energy exploded from the god of war's body. Dazzling golden light shone from the god of war. At this moment, the war god was constantly resisting the pulling force. However, how could a mere false saint resist the pulling force of the saint's world? If a miracle didn't happen, the war god would definitely be pulled into the saint's world. At that time, he might join the human race or be killed by Shangzhen or the experts of the demon race. There were very few miracles in this world, but the war god had a miracle. The war god was about to be pulled into the saint's world. However, at this moment, a huge hand suddenly broke the sky and reached out from the void. It was as if it had grabbed out from the ancient time. After the huge hand appeared, it immediately grabbed the war god. Then, he exerted force with his big hand, directly shattering that force temporarily. In the next moment, the huge hand grabbed the war god and broke the sky again, entering the void. Murong Yu, I will be back. After the war god disappeared, an extremely resentful voice rang out from the void and drowned out the entire eastern wilderness. What's going on? The war god is actually a woman? Everyone was first shocked by the sudden appearance of the huge hand that grabbed the war god. Then they all looked at Murong Yu. It was a woman's voice. They couldn't help but suspect that the female voice belonged to the war god, because that voice only appeared after the war god disappeared. However, the war god was a woman? Everyone was stunned. Could it be that battle god and Murong Yu had some sort of grudge in the past? Or was it that Murong Yu had abandoned that woman before? Their imagination was rich, and in a short period of time, countless guesses were spread. Everyone looked at Murong Yu. Murong Yu was puzzled. How did he know who the war god was? There were too many people in this world who had a grudge against him. It was normal for her to seek revenge on him. However, the strength of the god of war was a bit too high. He had actually reached the level of false saint. If an enemy like this was not sent to the saint's world, he would always be a great threat. Moreover, Murong Yu was not worried about false saints. Although false saints were powerful, he still had a way to send them to the holy world. However, the person who had just attacked was obviously not a false saint, but a saint. Although it was just a flash in the pan, Murong Yu had been with Lu Haotsong, an eternal stage saint, for a long time. Even if only a little bit of aura was exposed, Murong Yu could tell that the other party was a real saint. That guy won't attack me, right? Murong Yu was a little depressed. Once that guy attacked, how could Murong Yu resist? Could he only escape into the chaotic secret land? In the chaotic secret land, as long as Lu Haotsong was still there, no one else could do anything to Murong Yu. Moreover, there was no lack of power in the chaotic secret land. Murong Yu could cultivate until he became a saint. Of course, this was a bad idea. Only when there was no way out would Murong Yu enter the chaotic secret land. Disciples of the War God sect immediately leave the War God sect. The War God sect will be disbanded from this moment on. After a day, if I find that the War God sect still exists, and there are still people who call themselves disciples of the War God sect, kill without mercy. Murong Yu's voice spread far and wide. Instantly, the disciples of the War God Church immediately tore apart their War God Church's clothes. No one knew where the War God went, and the quasi-saint powerhouses of the War God sect were almost all dead. Even if Murong Yu did not say anything, these people would not continue to stay in the War God sect. After all, the War God sect used to be domineering and tyrannical, and they had long angered a lot of people. Now that there was no powerhouse suppressing them, others would immediately take action against them. The War God sect rose suddenly and disappeared suddenly. At this time, Murong Yu and the others had re-entered the holy city. They held a big banquet to congratulate the victory of the battle, and also to thank Fanghua and the others who came to support Shenzhen. Good lad, when did so many powerhouses appear in Shenzhen? All of them are high-level quasi-saint. Not simple. Xiang Sungwu patted Murong Yu's shoulder with a smile. Murong Yu's growth was too fast, too terrifying. It could be said that Xiang Sungwu had watched him grow. Xiang Sungwu was of course happy, because the faster Murong Yu grew, the stronger he became, the better it was for them. Moreover, Xiang Sungwu had always thought highly of Murong Yu. What could make him happier than seeing someone he thought highly of grow stronger quickly? You're flattering me. Compared to Primeval College, Shenzhen is still nothing. Murong was very humble. Xiang Sungwu rolled his eyes. Primeval College had more quasi-saint than Shenzhen. That was a fact. However, if they were to go to war, Murong Yu was not afraid of Primeval College at all. So what if there was a pseudo-saint? If Murong Yu sneaked into Primeval College, then Primeval College's pseudo-saint would tragically ascend. Lad, you can make any saint ascend to the holy world? Xiang Sungwu looked at Murong Yu with a serious expression and asked, as long as they are not from the holy world, I can make them ascend. Seeing Xiang Sungwu's vigilant look, Murong Yu could not help but laugh. Don't worry, I won't do anything to Primeval College's saints. Unless we are enemies. Lad, you must remember what you said today. Xiang Sungwu heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Murong Yu would secretly make a move on their saints. Apart from Primeval College, are there any saints in the other 3 colleges? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Xiang Sungwu shook his head and pondered for a moment before saying, I don't think so. However, Primeval College has a saint, but the other colleges might not have one. Moreover, the holy world is so big, so it is possible that there are some saints hidden in it. At least there are saints in the demon race. Demon race's saints? Murong Yu chuckled. Xiang Sungwu felt a chill in his heart and began to mourn for the demon race's saint. Old Xiang, I was only in the sky realm back then, and you were already in the heavenly venerable realm. Now that I have reached the peak of the heavenly venerable realm, you are still in the same realm. I really despise you. Murong Yu sized up Xiang Sungwu with a face full of disdain. Xiang Sungwu immediately glared and said snappily, Do you think everyone is like you? So abnormal. In any case, I can be considered a top existence among the geniuses, although compared to you, I am nothing. Xiang Sungwu was a little depressed. Compared to a freak like Murong Yu, any genius was trash. Old Xiang, don't say that I don't take care of you. There are some good things here that should be able to help you break through to the quasi-saint realm in a short time. Murong Yu patted Xiang Sungwu's shoulder and handed him a storage ring at the same time. You should keep it. Primeval College has all kinds of resources. I don't lack these. Xiang Sungwu refused without even looking at it. Is that so? You should take a look at it first. If you insist that you don't want it after looking at it. Xiang Sungwu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately took the storage ring and used his divine telekinesis to check it. Blood crystals. 100,000 pieces. Xiang Sungwu was shocked. Then, with a whoosh, the storage ring in his hand disappeared as he kept it in his storage space. That was 100,000 pieces of blood crystals. Moreover, the lowest quality blood crystal was of high grade. The energy contained in it was extremely huge. Not only can the blood crystals improve comprehension, but they can also temper the body. Old Xiang, if you don't have enough, you can ask me for more. Don't be embarrassed, Murong Yu said with a smile. Xiang Sungwu's heart warmed. He felt that he had not misjudged Murong Yu. Murong Yu had always been a person who would repay kindness with kindness and revenge with revenge. Whoever treated him well, he would definitely repay tenfold. If Xiang Sungwu had not protected him in the past, he would not have given the blood crystals to Xiang Sungwu at all. Pass these blood crystals to the Bloody Butcher and the rest on my behalf. They have helped me before. These blood crystals can help them improve their abilities. Murong Yu took out another storage ring and passed it to Xiang Sungwu. Subsequently, Murong Yu began to distribute the blood crystals generously. Anyone who came to help Shenzhen would be given blood crystals as a reward. To a certain extent, the blood crystals were even more precious than divine artifacts. Therefore, when they saw the blood crystals, none of them rejected them. However, they were closer to Murong Yu and Shenzhen. Of course, not everyone had 100,000 pieces of blood crystals. Although Murong Yu had countless blood crystals, he still had Shenzhen behind him. For example, Xiang Sungwu, Fan Tong, and the rest all had 100,000 pieces of blood crystals. It was not that Murong Yu did not want to give them more blood crystals. In fact, they would not be able to use up all the blood crystals. Most importantly, they could ask Murong Yu for more after they used up all the blood crystals. Murong Yu was definitely not stingy with these. In the following period of time, Murong Yu went around and distributed large amounts of blood crystals. Anyone who had a good relationship with him would get a share. After doing all this, Murong Yu was ready to take action against the 3 colleges. These 3 academies weren't anything good. They actually helped the tyrant and secretly helped the battle god sect. If he wanted to kill Huang, he had to kill these pests first. Chapter 1147. Prehistoric City. The 4 great academies, Shenzhen, and some other major powers of the human race were all gathered here. Because this time, Murong Yu was the one who issued the summons. They didn't dare to not come. With Shenzhen's current strength, there weren't many people in the human race who could withstand his attacks. After all, even the war god sect, which had been in the limelight for a while, was easily destroyed by Murong Yu. Everyone, I'm sure you're all wondering why we're all gathered here and wasting our time instead of fighting the demons. After everyone had arrived, Murong Yu stood up, glanced at everyone, and said in a deep voice, "Murong Yu, I'm sure you gathered all of us here because you have something important to tell us. Let's get straight to the point," an important person from Primeval College said immediately. Murong Yu nodded and said, "Everyone here is a top-notch existence of the major powers. I'm sure you all have a deep understanding of desolation. You all know that we're on top of the corpse in Eastern Wilderness. However, do you know that the people above want to revive desolation?" In the crowd, many people's expressions changed slightly. They all knew about desolation, but some of them never thought that the saint wanted to revive Eastern Wilderness. Once Eastern Wilderness was revived, the entire divine world would be in trouble. Murong Yu, don't talk nonsense. Desolation has been dead for so many years. How do you know that the people above want to revive Eastern Wilderness? This is simply nonsense. A big shot from the Heaven Wasteland Academy immediately sneered. An important person from Savage College also sneered. Murong Yu, Shenzhen is powerful enough to destroy the War God sect. Don't think that we don't know your plan. You want to use this opportunity to unify the human race in the divine world to satisfy your desire for power, right? That's utter nonsense. Everyone, please disperse. Why don't you go and kill a few more demons? Staying here is a waste of life. The one who spoke was Quasi-Saint from Grand Desolation College. Yeah, Murong Yu, you've never been to the Saint's world. How do you know they want to revive the Eastern Wasteland? Some people who didn't believe Murong Yu began to doubt him even more after hearing the words of the big shots from the 3 big academies. However, some people had gloomy expressions. They all believed in Murong Yu. However, reviving the Eastern Wilderness was still a little too shocking. It was unbelievable. Murong Yu didn't say anything. He just let these people talk for a while before he said indifferently, "You all think that I'm doing this because I'm bored? Dare I ask Savage Academy, with my current strength, how long would it take for me, Shenzhen, to destroy your Savage Academy? Once I make a move, will Primeval College and the Fan family help me?" The face of the big shot from the Savage Institute instantly darkened. If Shenzhen joined forces with Primeval College and other powers, their Savage College would be easily wiped out from the God Realm. Even if there were people above, it would be useless. I can tell you very responsibly that your 3 big academies won't be able to withstand a single blow. In one night, I can make all of you lose 4 times. Murong Yu sneered and continued, "Since I have the ability to destroy all of you, why don't I just unify the human race? Why would I need to gather all of you here?" The big shots from the 3 big academies fell silent. Their faces darkened, and they were extremely unhappy. However, no one refuted because Murong Yu was telling the truth. I think everyone can feel that something is wrong with the Eastern Wilderness. The murderous aura is getting thicker and thicker. It's so thick that the sky of the eastern wilderness has turned gray. Don't tell me that it's because too many people have died in the war. That's why it's condensed. Everyone fell silent. They all told themselves that in their hearts. However, the eastern wilderness was so big. It was not impossible to condense the murderous aura. However, the casualties of the two races were definitely not enough. It was far from enough. It would probably take tens of thousands of deaths to form the murderous aura. However, the murderous aura was growing rapidly every day. Maybe you don't believe all of it. Do you know where I've been for the past 10,000 years? Inside the eastern wasteland, the desolate world. Murong gave a rough description of the desolate world, which left everyone dumbfounded. In other words, you got the blood crystal from the desolate world? Someone couldn't help but ask. Murong nodded. However, in the desolate world, the cultivation level is suppressed to the divine realm. We can't cut off the heart of the desolate world. Hence, if we want to completely destroy the eastern wilderness, the people of our two worlds must unite. Hence, I used 10,000 years to persuade the big forces and tribes of the desolate world. As he spoke, Murong waved his hand. Instantly, thousands of experts at the peak of the divine heavenly sovereign appeared in the hall. This is the divine world. It's really different from the desolate world. However, why is the murderous aura here so thick? However, compared to the murderous aura in the desolate world, it's nothing. We can quickly absorb the chi of heaven and earth here to cultivate. As long as we have enough strength, our forces can definitely improve quickly. After the experts of the desolate world appeared, they all sensed the difference between the divine world and the desolate world. As a result, they completely ignored Murong and the others. They're all at the divine realm. When Dijingye and the others appeared, the experts of the divine world also sized them up. They're the strongest people in the desolate world. When they saw their cultivation level, the people of the divine world couldn't help but feel contempt. They looked down on the people of the desolate world. You're looking down on the people of the desolate world? A peak divine heavenly sovereign from the desolate world slowly stepped out, looking indifferently at the rank 6 quasi-saint who spoke. Divine realm, I can kill you with a single breath. The rank 6 quasi-saint's face was full of disdain. Is that so? Then let's see if you can kill me. Cut the crap. If you have the ability, then fight me. As he spoke, the top divine heavenly sovereign from Desolation World soared into the air and flew up into the sky. After appearing in the divine world, they found that their energy consumption wasn't as terrifying. Most importantly, they could absorb the yuan chi of heaven and earth to replenish their energy. There wouldn't be an awkward situation where the desolate world's energy was depleted quickly. Haha, I want to see what's so great about the peak experts of the desolate world. The rank 6 quasi-saint laughed and soared into the sky as well. As for the others, they left the hall one after another. Kid, is the desolate world's expert really a match for that quasi-saint? Xiang Sangwu came to Murong Yu's side and asked. That rank 6 quasi-saint isn't a match for the desolate world's expert. Murong Yu said indifferently. Shua, countless experts from the divine world focused their gazes on Murong Yu, each and every one of them filled with doubt. No matter how they looked at it, they didn't think that the rank 6 quasi-saint would be a match for that peak expert. However, they soon got their answer. Above the vault of heaven, the two experts with a great disparity in cultivation first looked at each other, and then both of them charged over. There was no need for any fancy moves at all. The two of them turned into beams of light and tore through the void, slamming into each other midway. After a loud explosion, the rank 6 quasi-saint was sent flying. On the other hand, the desolate world's expert stood still on the spot. Good. Seeing this, the experts of the desolate world couldn't help but cheer. As for the experts of the divine world, they were all shocked. How is this possible? The rank 6 quasi-saint roared and soared into the sky, charging towards the divine heavenly sovereign again. However, this time, he didn't engage in close combat. Instead, he slammed his palm down from afar. The peak divine heavenly sovereign laughed coldly. When the rank 6 quasi-saint's palm slammed down, he punched out. With a PU sound, that big hand was directly blasted into smithereens. At the same time, the divine heavenly sovereign soared into the sky and crossed hundreds of millions of miles in a single step. He appeared in front of the rank 6 quasi-saint and punched him hard. Huh. The rank 6 quasi-saint couldn't withstand the attack of the divine heavenly sovereign at all. His entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. However, the peak divine heavenly sovereign didn't continue to attack. Otherwise, the rank 6 quasi-saint soul would have been crushed by his stomp. What's going on? Heavenly sovereign destroyed the rank 6 quasi-saint? The people of the divine world were shocked. Moronyu was also shocked. He knew that the desolate world's experts with strong physical bodies would have an advantage, but he didn't expect it to be so obvious. One could imagine that once their strength reached a higher realm, wouldn't they be able to dominate the divine world? Of course, to what extent could they reach? He didn't know. After all, there were gains and losses. Not everyone was like Moronyu, who could cultivate his physical body and cultivation to an extremely high realm at the same time. His physical body has reached the peak of the divine artifact level. Even a rank 10 quasi-saint wouldn't be able to kill them. Once they increased their cultivation by a few more realms, even a rank 10 quasi-saint wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Moronyu's indifferent voice spread far and wide, shocking everyone. The divine world and the desolate world were two completely different worlds. One specialized in the cultivation of cultivation, while the other specialized in the cultivation of the physical body. They were neck and neck, so they were evenly matched. After all, when one's physical body was cultivated to the extreme, it was also extremely powerful. A divine artifact level physical body. How strong is his physical body? How terrifying is his physical strength? The experts of the divine world were shocked. The way they looked at the desolate world's experts had changed. Previously, they looked at them with disdain and contempt. But now, he already saw them as equals. All right, now that everyone has a preliminary understanding of the strength of the two worlds, let's continue what we were doing before. Moronyu clapped his hands and returned to the main hall. Because of this, the experts of the divine world were even more in awe of Moronyu, because those thousands of super experts were brought out by Moronyu. If those people were to help Moronyu, the entire divine world would be unified by him in a short time. Chapter 1148. In the main hall of the Great Desolation City, the experts from the divine world and the desolate world were seated on two sides. After a round of discussion, everyone realized that the revival of the Eastern Desolation would be a huge disaster. However, they were still unable to fully believe it. After all, they didn't know the situation of the sacred world above. How could they believe Moronyu's words so easily? Moronyu, how can you be sure that the people above are reviving desolation? If not, what if we act recklessly and revive desolation? An important figure from Abyssal College looked at Moronyu with a gloomy expression. The others also looked at Moronyu with disbelief in their eyes. Moronyu sneered in his heart, because this news was told to me by a sage. An undead stage sage, an expert from the sacred world, isn't like those sages who have yet to ascend. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Moronyu knew a sage? Although they didn't know what kind of existence an undead stage sage was in the sacred world. However, since Moronyu said that he was an expert from the sacred world, his strength shouldn't be weak. How can there be a sage from the sacred world in the divine world? This is something everyone knows. Moronyu, do you really think we are idiots? An important figure from the Great Desolation College sneered. Everyone immediately woke up from their shock. That's right. How could there be an expert of that level in the divine world? Wasn't Moronyu tricking them? Idiot. When did I say that the sage is in the divine world? Moronyu looked at the important figure from the Great Desolation College with a look of disdain. The face of the important figure from the Great Desolation College instantly turned gloomy. Could it be that you have been to the sacred world? As an important figure from the Great Desolation College, I am worried about your intelligence. I am curious, with your intelligence, how did you cultivate to the quasi-saint stage? How did you become an important figure in the Great Desolation College? Is the Great Desolation College filled with trash like you? Moronyu was too lazy to explain. He glanced at the other party and sneered. How dare you? Moronyu, don't think that I'm afraid of you, just because your Shenzhen is strong. Watch your mouth. Moronyu sneered. He glanced at the crowd and said, I know you don't believe me, but I will prove it to you. However, before that, I need the people of both worlds to cooperate sincerely. I'm not interested in ruling the God Realm, but for this wasteland slaying operation, we must form an alliance. We must have someone to command. Otherwise, we won't be able to accomplish anything. Am I right? Moronyu, you just want to use this opportunity to unify the God world. If you have such a heart, why don't you dare to admit it? You said that a saint told you, right? We have to see that saint before I believe it. Otherwise, go back to where you came from. Don't try to fool us. Moronyu was infuriated. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he stared at the big shot from Abyssal College. All this time, it was the people from the 3 great academies who provoked him and kept finding fault with him. He had long been enraged. It seems that there's no need for the 3 great academies to continue existing in the God Realm. After this, I'll just kill them. Morongyu's eyes flashed with killing intent. If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried that destroying the 3 great academies would affect the overall strength of the human race, he would have done it a few days ago. You want to see the saint? I can take you there. But first, you have to enter my spatial treasure. Morongyu, you've got a great idea. If we enter your spatial treasure, wouldn't you be able to easily control us? When that happens, you'll be able to control all the top human experts in the God Realm. TSK, you'll naturally become the overlord of the God Realm. The big shot from Abyssal College said. You're both the god and the ghost. Are you trying to cause trouble? Fangua finally couldn't take it anymore and shouted at the big shot from Abyssal College. That's the truth. We need to see the saint before we believe Morongyu's words. But we can't enter his spatial treasure. The big shot from Desolation College said. Morongyu, the God Realm is so big and there are so many experts. Let's just forget about these pieces of trash. I don't believe that without them, we won't be able to do anything. Besides, if we fail, they won't be able to live either. Let's go see the saint. Dijina stepped forward and looked at the people from the 3 great academies with disdain. That's right. These pieces of trash, it doesn't matter whether they're gone or not. I can't wait to see the real saint. The experts from Desolation World said. They had absolute faith in Morongyu and weren't afraid that Morongyu would secretly subdue them. After all, if he wanted to subdue them, he would have done it the first time instead of waiting until now. Okay, Morongyu said indifferently, and then took out the Hichu Luo Shu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The experts from Desolation World all rushed in without hesitation. Fangua and the other experts who supported Morongyu didn't hesitate either. Soon, only the 3 great academies and those who were close to them hadn't entered the Great Hall. I'll give you 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, the 3 great academies will be on their own. Morongyu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he gave the 3 great academies a chance. So, should we go in? The big shots from the 3 great academies communicated telepathically. If Morongyu wants to unify the God Realm, the 3 great academies won't be able to stop him. Besides, if he wants to control those people, even if we don't go in, he'll make a move on us sooner or later. Why don't we go and see the saint now? If there's no saint, a big shot from Abyssal College sneered. His figure flashed and rushed into the Hichu Luo Shu world. The others hesitated for a moment before entering the Hichu Luo Shu one after another. With a thought, Morongyu directly teleported to the chaotic secret plane and then appeared in Lu Haotsong's Great Hall. Old Lu, I'm here. After Morongyu appeared, he sat in Lu Haotsong's usual seat. This made Lu Haotsong have the urge to beat him up. Kid, you're not going to continue to break through this time, are you? Lu Haotsong, who had been hit hard, didn't want to ask Moronyu about his cultivation because he was hit hard every time. But he couldn't help but ask. However, as soon as he asked, he couldn't help but want to slap his own mouth. Wasn't this asking for a beating? Seeing Lu Haotsong's dark face, Moronyu couldn't help laughing. Old Lu, you're really wrong this time. I'm not here to break through. Lu Haotsong breathed a sigh of relief. But when he heard Moronyu's words, he almost coughed up blood. If there's time, the other two godheads should be able to quickly break through to the peak of the celestial master realm. Ignoring Lu Haotsong, who was about to vomit blood, Moronyu continued, Old Lu, I need your help this time. It's not suitable for them to know too much about the Holy Realm. What do you want me to do? Lu Haotsong frowned slightly, feeling that Moronyu was taking a bit of a risk. Once it was discovered by the people above, Moronyu would be the one to suffer. You just need to suppress them. While speaking, Moronyu waved his hand, and Fangua and the others all appeared in the Great Hall. Boom! Put on! Put on! Put on! As soon as Fangua appeared, a huge force descended from the sky. In an instant, all of them were drowned by this terrifying force. These people were all high-level quasi-saint powerhouses or peak divine heavenly sovereigns. However, before they could even react, they were already suppressed to the ground. After all of them were suppressed to the ground, they finally reacted. All of them raised their strength to the limit, trying to break free from this terrifying pressure. However, they were shocked to find that no matter how they struggled or how they raised their strength, the pressure was still the same. The power suppressing them remained the same, but their struggles were futile. I heard from Moronyu that you want to see me. Do you think ants like you deserve to see me? Do you know that I can turn you into ashes with just a thought? As they were struggling, Lu Haotsong's indifferent voice rang in their ears. A saint. At this moment, everyone believed that they were facing a saint-level expert. How did Moronyu get to know this saint? And they seemed to have a good relationship? Many people had the same thought in their minds at the same time. If it weren't for Moronyu interceding for you, I could have killed you the moment you appeared, Lu Haotsong said indifferently. However, the people who were suppressed on the ground felt that the pressure on their bodies was getting stronger and stronger. They were beginning to be unable to bear it. Cold sweat began to pour down everyone's face. You don't believe me? You don't believe that they're reviving desolation? Do you think, Moronyu, spent so much effort to unify the holy world? Do you know that I can easily bring Moronyu to the holy world? It's just a divine world, it's nothing in my eyes. At the very least, I can bring all of Shenzhen's people to the chaotic secret ground. Oh, maybe you don't know that this is the chaotic secret ground? Listening to Lu Haotsong's constant long-winded speech, Moronyu, who was beside him, had black lines on his face. Originally, he meant to let Lu Haotsong intimidate them, and then say a few words to warn them. He just didn't expect this guy to be so talkative. Once he opened his mouth, he wouldn't stop talking. What Moronyu didn't know was that Lu Haotsong had been here alone for so long that he almost forgot how to speak. Although Moronyu often appeared here, he came and went in a hurry every time and didn't say a few words at all. The most important thing was that Moronyu didn't fall for his tricks. However, these people didn't have the guts that Moronyu had. Thus, Lu Haotsong decided to use his mouth and suppress them for fun. Chapter 1149. People with too high a cultivation level couldn't enter the chaotic secret land. How could Moronyu come in here? Moreover, they never knew that there was a saint in the chaotic secret land. Hearing Lu Haotsong's words, all the experts present broke out in cold sweat. They were extremely shocked, because under Lu Haotsong's suppression, they couldn't even raise their heads. Moreover, they were convinced that the aura that suppressed them was only 1/10,000th of Lu Haotsong's strength, or even far less. The situation above is complicated. If you idiots don't want the divine world to be destroyed and all of you die, then cooperate and kill desolation. Otherwise, you can just wait to die, Lu Haotsong said indifferently. Everyone's hearts sank. Now, that even a saint said so, they were sure that the people above were reviving desolation. Moronyu was right. Senior, You're a saint expert. If you take action, wouldn't you be able to destroy the eastern wilderness easily? Stop them from reviving the eastern wilderness? At this time, a rank 10 quasi-saint said with difficulty, Kill desolation? Stop them from reviving desolation? Why should I take action? What does the destruction of the divine world have to do with me? Why should I offend those saints and save them? Lu Haozong sneered. Everyone's hearts sank. Lu Haozong was telling the truth. Since Lu Haozong was unwilling to take action, they could only rely on them. Senior, how do we kill desolation? Another expert said with difficulty. Lu Haozong sneered again. Why should I tell you? I've told you enough. You can scram now. Murongyu immediately opened the Hichu Luoshu and sucked in these people who didn't dare to resist. After sucking in all the experts, Murongyu looked at Lu Haozong with a dark face and asked, Old Lu, isn't it fun? Lu Haozong laughed heartily. These pieces of trash are too boring. Just a trace of aura is enough to suppress them and make them unable to move. It's so boring. Murongyu's face turned even darker. This guy didn't even look at the gap between them. How big was the gap between a quasi-saint and an imperishable saint? The difference between gods and mortals. Be honest, Old Lu, do you have a way to kill desolation? Murongyu's face darkened for a while before he asked with a frown. I don't know, Lu Haozong said straightforwardly. This fella had never seen Huang before, so he obviously didn't know how to kill Huang. Due to the protection of the heavens in the saint's world, desolation was unable to enter the saint's world to cause trouble even though he was powerful. Of course, perhaps the Holy Realm had also been attacked by desolation before, but in any case, Lu Haozong had never seen it. In the main hall of the great desolate city, Murongyu and the others appeared once again. Now that everyone has seen the sage, what other objections do you have? Murongyu's gaze slowly swept across the faces of the crowd, finally stopping on the faces of the big shots from the three great academies. At this moment, the faces of the big shots from the three great academies were extremely ugly. Murongyu actually knew the sage. Moreover, the sage seemed to have a good relationship with him. What else could they do to Murongyu? They couldn't stop him, so they had to obtain the greatest benefits for themselves in the next operation. Now, we should discuss how to kill desolation, said a big shot from Abyssal College. Everyone nodded in agreement. However, the people from the desolate world frowned deeply. They all lived in the desolate world, although they didn't know the specific situation before. Now, they roughly knew the structure of desolation's body. The blood crystal mine should be desolation's blood vessels. There were countless crisscrossing blood vessels. The deepest part of the blood crystal mine should be desolation's heart. However, desolation's heart was so big that it couldn't be destroyed in the desolate world. Oh no! A long time ago, there weren't any loud, thumping sounds in the depths of the blood crystal mine. However, not long ago, there was a sound similar to a heartbeat. Does that mean the East desolation is gradually reviving? Suddenly, the expression of an expert from the desolate world changed drastically. Before he could finish his sentence, everyone's expression changed instantly. We must find a way to destroy desolation's heart as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the East desolation revives, we will all be in trouble. But how should we destroy it? Do you have any ideas? Everyone looked at each other worriedly. The people above should use the blood and murderous aura to revive the East desolation. As long as we stop the war with the monster race, we can delay the revival of the East desolation, said Murongyu calmly. Everyone's eyes flashed with divine light. That was indeed a good idea. However, would the monster race be willing to stop the war? Would they believe what they said? They definitely wouldn't. Moreover, they wouldn't enter Murongyu's spatial treasure to meet the sage in the chaotic secret plane. Unless we kill all of them, said a 10th-level quasi-saint murderously. An expert from the desolate world immediately sneered. If we kill them, perhaps the East desolation will be revived. I think we should stop the war for now. Let's try to negotiate with the monster race. If they can't accept it, we'll think of another way. That's right. The humans should all retreat. As long as no more people die and the war stops, we should be able to delay the revival of the East desolation. Immediately, everyone agreed to stop the war temporarily. Soon after, orders were passed down. Not long after, the humans on the battlefield retreated and stayed in the encampment without leaving. The monster race didn't chase after them either. They were afraid that this was a scheme of the humans. After the human army retreated, the people in the hall didn't leave, because they knew that this was the most critical moment. Just as Murong Yu said, if they wanted to destroy the East Desolation, they had to unite. Only by having a unified command could they avoid being in a state of disunity. Before we negotiate with the monster race, let's establish a temporary alliance. The desolate world has been in an alliance for a long time. Moreover, after our discussion, we have unanimously decided to support Murong Yu as the leader of this alliance, said Dijinye slowly. The faces of the big shots from the 3 colleges and the forces close to them instantly darkened. Murong Yu, you're only a heavenly venerable. If you become the leader, I'm afraid you won't be accepted. Moreover, although Shenzhen is powerful, it hasn't been established for long. It's far from the prestige of the 4 colleges in the continents. I suggest that only one of the 4 colleges can be the leader. The big shot from Abyssal College glanced at everyone and then said calmly, "Hey, are you going to say that Abyssal College should be the leader?" An expert from the desolate world sneered. "I'm thinking about the big picture. If you don't mind, Abyssal College can reluctantly be the leader." A peak divine grade expert from the desolate world was furious. Bullsh *T. What 4 colleges? Do you know a saint? Abyssal College? Do you believe that I'll massacre your college right now? I'd like to see if the people of Tianhuang mainland will accept Shenzhen after I destroy your college. Damn it, I've had enough. It's always been an idiot like you who's blabbering about the 3 colleges. Murong Yu, let's just destroy these 3 pieces of trash first. Anyway, these idiots won't accept you. Destroy them so that they won't cause trouble later. The experts from the desolate world all shouted angrily with murderous intent. Some of them had even closed in on the experts from the 3 colleges. What are you trying to do? We haven't even negotiated with the demon race, and you're already fighting among yourselves? The expressions of the people from the 3 colleges changed constantly as they retreated. All right, that's the end of this matter. We, Primeval College, support Murong Yu to be the leader. At this moment, the big shot from Primeval College, who had been silent all this while spoke. Since Primeval College supported Murong Yu, the forces that were on good terms with Primeval College naturally had no objections. Now, only the 3 colleges and their people were left. The big shots from the 3 colleges were extremely unhappy. They still wanted to argue with reason, but seeing the murderous intent of the people, especially those from the desolate world, they finally agreed to let Murong Yu become the leader of the alliance between the human race and the desolate world. So far, the human race and the desolate world had formed an alliance. Now, only the demon race was left. The demon race was different from a human race. Like the human race, they had countless continents. However, they were different from the human race, which was ruled by the 4 colleges. The demon race was only ruled by the Celestial Palace. The Celestial Palace was the most powerful force of the demon race. All the experts and forces of the demon race had to listen to the orders of the Celestial Palace. Therefore, compared to the scattered human race, the demon race was much more cohesive, and the combat power they displayed was also very powerful. In the Eastern Wasteland, there was also a Celestial Palace. Only the experts of the demon race were qualified to stay in the Celestial Palace. It was the command center of the demon race's war. At this moment, hundreds of experts were gathered in the Celestial Palace. What's the human race's conspiracy? A few days ago, they suddenly retreated, and now they're inviting the experts of the demon race for a gathering. A demon race expert with soaring demon chi said in a low voice, sneering, "I'm afraid this is the human race's conspiracy. They want to kill the experts of the demon race. Or maybe they want to kill the leaders of the demon race." Another demon race expert sneered. Not long ago, the human race had sent an invitation, inviting the experts of the demon race to the center of the battlefield. They said that they had something important to discuss. However, the demon race was used to seeing all kinds of schemes of the human race. They definitely did not believe that they really had something important to discuss. Therefore, they basically did not want to attend a meeting. Commander, there's someone outside who claims to be the leader of the human race. He wants to see you. Just as the people of the Celestial Palace were discussing, a demon race expert rushed in to report. Chapter 1150. Alliance Leader. Many demon clan experts in Celestial Palace were stunned. Then, an expert sneered. How dare this alliance leader come to our demon clan? He really doesn't know how to spell the word death. He was different from the demon clan expert who sneered with a murderous aura. Some demon clan experts frowned slightly. How many of them are there? There's only one person. He's just outside Celestial Palace. Before the demon clan expert could finish speaking, a figure appeared at the entrance of Celestial Palace and slowly walked into Celestial Palace. There was no soaring demonic aura, nor was there any soaring aura. He was just a small celestial master. The experts in Celestial Palace were shocked when they saw the black-robed young man walking in slowly. They didn't know how this human celestial master dared to enter Celestial Palace alone. Most importantly, how did he get in? This was not the wilderness, but the demon clan's encampment, where experts were as numerous as clouds. Boy, who are you? How dare you enter Celestial Palace? Everyone was stunned for a moment. Then someone reacted immediately. He shouted and stretched out his big hand. It shattered the void and grabbed at the black-robed young man, intending to kill him. The black-robed young man sneered and advanced instead of retreating. He took a step forward and punched out at the same time. He met the demon clan experts, fast claw head-on. The demon clan expert sneered. A mere celestial master dared to fight with him. A high-level quasi-saint? He was simply courting death. Therefore, he grinned maliciously and reached out with his hand at an even faster speed. Bang! Both of them were extremely fast and collided with each other in the blink of an eye. After a muffled sound, the demon clan quasi-saint expert was sent flying like a broken rag doll. The black-robed young man, who was only a celestial master, stood where he was without moving his clothes. His eyes were sharp and his aura was soaring. He was like a god of war from ancient times. Silence. The entire place fell silent in an instant. Hundreds of demon clan experts stared at the black-clothed youth in shock. In that instant, they clearly saw that the black-clothed youth did not gather any strength. When he punched out, there were no energy fluctuations at all. In other words, he had used his physical strength to send the demon clan expert flying. A celestial venerable could send a high-level demon clan quasi-saint flying with just his physical body? How could they not be shocked? It should be known that in the divine realm, the physical bodies of the demon clan experts were usually much stronger than those of the human clan. However, the strength of this black-clothed youth's physical body was beyond their expectations. Kid, I have to admit that you've really impressed me, but you dared to break into the Celestial Palace. Even if you were 1,000 times stronger, you would still have to stay here today. A quasi-saint of the demon clan sneered and walked step by step towards the black-clothed youth. Wait, who are you? Finally, before the quasi-saint of the demon clan could make a move, the commander of the demon clan army shouted and looked sharply at the black-clothed youth. Commander, he's the alliance master of the human clan. At this time, the demon clan expert who had reported before finally reacted and immediately reported. The alliance master of the human clan? A cold light flashed across the commander of the demon clan's eyebrows. At the same time, the other experts of the Celestial Palace also frowned and looked at the black-clothed youth. The alliance master of the human clan, Morong Yu. The black-clothed youth, who was Morong Yu, looked indifferently at the commander of the demon clan, Jiao Gu. There was no sign of nervousness on his face. You're the so-called alliance master of the human clan? Why did you break into the Celestial Palace? This is an important place for the demon clan. You're courting death. A 10th Order quasi-saint of the demon clan looked at Morong Yu with a ferocious expression. Morong Yu looked calmly at the 10th Order quasi-saint. I didn't come here for any other purpose. I just wanted to invite your commander for a gathering. Of course, if you don't hurry, I can go and invite the palace master of the Celestial Palace. How dare you? The experts of the demon clan were instantly enraged. They all glared at Murong Yu and were about to attack him. Murong Yu was very arrogant. The demon clan was unhappy. This guy broke into the Celestial Palace as if there was no one around. He simply treated the demon clan's encampment as if there was no one around. Moreover, as soon as he appeared, he sent a quasi-saint of the demon clan flying with a punch. This was definitely a humiliation to the demon clan and a show of strength. Murong Yu, since you've already arrived at the Celestial Palace, why don't you come here? Why don't you sit down and talk in detail? Why do you need to go and have a gathering? Xiaogu looked at Murong Yu and gestured for him to sit down. There's no need. In 3 days, please come and have a gathering, Commander. Otherwise, the human clan will attack in full force. As a friendly reminder, the current human clan is not the same as before. If you don't want to be exterminated, you can choose not to come. Before he finished speaking, Murong Yu's figure flickered and disappeared from the Celestial Palace. You're courting death. A quasi-saint of the demon clan roared angrily and punched out violently. However, it only caused the void to explode. There was no trace of Murong Yu. This quasi-saint's figure flickered and was about to rush out to kill Murong Yu. However, Xiaogu stopped him. Commander, this Murong Yu is clearly trying to intimidate us by giving us a show of strength. I think we should just attack the human clan's encampment. It's time for this war to end. A 10th-rank quasi-saint looked at Xiaogu and said murderously, "This must be a scheme. Commander, we don't even need to go. Do you think the human clan can exterminate us? That's wishful thinking. I don't understand. Why must the war be fought in the eastern wilderness? Is it really just to exhaust their middle and lower forces? Why don't we just attack the other continent and exterminate the human clan? Shut up, all of you. This is the will of the higher-ups. If you don't want to die, you'd better not think about this." Xiaogu roared fiercely. He was the absolute upper echelon of the Celestial Palace. Of course, he knew that this war was led by the higher-ups. The higher-ups only said that the war should be fought in the eastern wilderness. How could they dare to object? Most importantly, before Murong Yu left, he said something to him that it was related to the survival of the Yao clan and even the God Realm. Xiaogu couldn't help but hesitate. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that Murong Yu was deliberately mystifying. His goal was to ambush and kill the Yao clan experts. That way, he could win the war. The desolate world? Xiaogu pondered with a gloomy face. After a long while, he said slowly, "I'll go back to the Yao desolate world first. You guys take precautions against the human clan's attack." Everyone was confused, but Xiaogu had already left quickly. They could only swallow their confusion back into their stomachs. Why did Murong Yu enter the Celestial Palace alone? In fact, Murong Yu didn't enter the Celestial Palace alone. There was a large group of experts in the Hichu Luo Shu. The reason why he went to the Celestial Palace personally was because the desolate extermination mission required the full cooperation of experts from both worlds. The Yao clan was powerful. If they could cooperate, the desolate extermination mission would be much easier. Moreover, if they continued to fight with the Yao clan, the strength of both sides would be constantly weakened. On the other hand, the eastern wilderness would use the blood and killing intent of the war to quickly revive. This would be a disaster for the God Realm. Therefore, he had to persuade the Yao clan to cooperate. Of course, if the Yao clan didn't cooperate, Murong Yu could only use violence to conquer the Yao clan. Of course, Murong Yu didn't have the strength to conquer the Yao clan yet. Therefore, after leaving the Celestial Palace, he entered the chaotic secret zone and began to cultivate. There was no lightning secret zone or a secret zone with rich spatial energy. Murong Yu could only absorb the chaotic energy to raise the level of the other two divine personas. However, it was easier said than done to break through. Even if he had enough energy to refine it, it would still be the same. Therefore, in 3 days, Murong Yu's level didn't change at all. 3 days later, Murong Yu and the others appeared on the shooting cloud mountain in the center of the battlefield. There weren't many people accompanying them, only a few dozen. All of them were powerful. Except for Murong Yu, they were all rank 10 quasi-saint. Of course, there were still many experts in the Hichu Luo Shu. They believed that there was no lack of experts in the other treasure spaces. After all, if they were tricked by the Yao clan, it would be a tragedy for them. Will the Yao clan come? A quasi-saint frowned and asked. They should come, right? No one could guarantee that the Yao clan would really come, so no one was sure. However, Murong Yu was the only one with a face full of confidence. They will definitely come. Everyone looked at Murong Yu in surprise. They didn't know why he was so confident. However, before they could ask, dozens of demonic chi shot into the sky from afar. The experts of the Yao clan are here. Everyone's heart jumped and looked over. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Not long after, dozens of rank 10 quasi-saint demon clan experts appeared in front of Murong Yu and the others. They looked indifferently at Murong Yu and the others. Murong Yu, we are already here. If you have something to say, say it. Xiaogu took a step forward and looked at Murong Yu and said in a deep voice, There's no hurry. Since everyone is here and it's rare for us to gather together, why don't we have a drink first? Murong Yu said with a smile and waved his hand. Suddenly, tables and chairs appeared on the ground. There's no need for that. If you have something to say it directly. Xiaogu said again. Okay, I only have one thing to say. I need to cooperate with you. Of course, if the Yao clan can join my alliance, I welcome you with open arms. The Yao clan people's faces changed. Cooperation? Join Murong Yu's alliance? Didn't Murong Yu want them to submit? Hey, Murong Yu, you're too arrogant. The Yao clan and the human clan are mortal enemies. It's impossible for us to cooperate. Let's go. One of the Yao clan experts sneered and left. Don't you want to know about the deserted world? Don't you know the meaning of this war? Murong Yu wasn't anxious at all. He said calmly, as if he felt that the Yao clan people wouldn't leave just like that. As expected, the moment Murong Yu said that, the Yao clan people stopped in their tracks. Chapter 1151. Desolate World? Is it related to Desolate? The experts of the monster race walked back and looked coldly at Murong Yu and the others. Murong Yu didn't even bother to speak. He just sent out beams of light that contained the relationship between Desolate World and Eastern Wilderness. The experts of the monster race didn't hesitate because they knew that Murong Yu couldn't do anything to those memories. So they accepted all of them. You mean Eastern Wilderness is going to be revived? The people above are going to revive Eastern Wilderness? After accepting Murong Yu's memories, the experts of the monster race changed their expressions. They looked at Murong Yu and the others with ugly expressions. So, we have to work together. Otherwise, not only Desolate World will be destroyed, but the Divine World will also be destroyed. I believe you know what happened in the immemorial era. Murong Yu sat down and said indifferently, Once Eastern Wilderness was revived, they would all die. Even the Divine World could be destroyed. How could they not die? Unless they ascended to the Holy World. But how many false saints were there in the Divine World? Once Eastern Wilderness was revived, those false saints could ascend. But they definitely couldn't. Desolate has been dead for so many years. How can it be revived? Murong Yu, what are you planning? Even after accepting Murong Yu's memories, the quasi-saint of the monster race didn't believe it. In fact, rather than not believing it, they didn't want to believe it. Shut up. A 10th-rank quasi-saint of the monster race suddenly shouted. The other experts immediately shut their mouths. Even Xiaogu was the same. Murong Yu's eyes flashed coldly. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. He hadn't said anything since he appeared. Even Murong Yu thought he was just an ordinary expert of the Celestial Palace. But now it seemed that his status was extremely high. Even Xiaogu couldn't compare to him. Murong Yu, can we talk alone? Nie Tianyu looked at Murong Yu seriously. Enter my treasure space? Murong Yu smiled and looked at Nie Tianyu, the middle-aged man who had shouted before. Hearing this, many experts of the demon clan were enraged. One by one, they scolded, Moron, you, what are you planning? Enter your treasure space? Why didn't you enter my treasure space? Shut up, all of you. Nie Tianyu glared at them and shouted coldly. Then, he turned to look at Muron Yu and nodded. Muron Yu immediately put him into the Hichu Luoshu world. If we talk here, the people above won't be able to detect us, right? Nie Tianyu pointed to the sky and said with a serious expression. Muron Yu nodded. If you're still worried, I can take you to see the saint. In that case, you should believe that I'm telling the truth. Nie Tianyu shook his head. No need. I believe you. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Celestial Palace's Vice Palace Master, Nie Tianyu. Palace Master Nie, I believe you didn't enter my treasure space just to say these words, right? Murong Yu conjured 2 chairs and made an inviting gesture to Nie Tianyu. Nie Tianyu shook his head and didn't sit down. Actually, I've long sensed that something was wrong. The demon wilderness continent and the human continent were very far apart. Although the 2 races hated each other, it wasn't to the point where they had to destroy each other. All of this was led by the people above. Celestial Palace and the 4 great academies were the same. Otherwise, why would the 2 races go to war? Moreover, as a person in high position, he had come into contact with more things than anyone else. There might even be some sacred relics descending from above. In fact, Celestial Palace wasn't controlled by the demon clan of the God Realm. The ones in charge were the demon clan of the Holy World. All of Celestial Palace's actions were led by the Holy World. Our Palace Master is most likely a puppet of a saint. After explaining the situation in Celestial Palace, Nie Tianyu's words were shocking. Murong Yu's brows furrowed deeply, and his face turned ugly. Shocking, right? Nie Tianyu's face was full of helplessness. It's not just our Palace Master. The deans of the 4 great academies of the human clan may also be puppets of a saint. Moreover, other than them, there are others in the 4 great academies and Celestial Palace who are also their puppets. Murong Yu's heart sank. He just realized that he had never seen the deans of the 4 great academies before. They were only legendary figures. And if there were puppets of a saint among the other big shots, wouldn't the saint find out that Murong Yu wanted to slay the demon wilderness? If they were discovered, the higher-ups would definitely kill Murong Yu and the rest of them. Are you sure? Nie Tianyu shook his head. I'm just suspecting. Our Palace Master usually doesn't appear. Every time she appears, it's just to convey the will of the people above, including this war. So what's your plan? Slay the demon wilderness. Kill all of the saints' puppets. I can understand how they feel about reviving the demon wilderness. But I can't just watch them destroy the God Realm, the Immortal Realm, and the Mortal Realm. I must stop all of this. Nie Tianyu's expression was heavy. Murong Yu nodded, and a smile appeared on his face. Nie Tianyu's strength was so high that he couldn't read his mind. But he could feel the truth in Nie Tianyu's words. We need to discuss what to do next. The war between the 2 clans couldn't be stopped. The 4 great academies and Celestial Palace had saints' puppets. They must have known that the war had stopped and would soon send down orders to restart the war. In this way, Murong Yu and the others would know whether they were puppets or not. As for the false saints, Murong Yu didn't have to worry about them at all. The problem now was, how are they going to kill the demon wilderness? Even if they got rid of the saints' puppets, the saints' consciousness could descend. Was it really impossible for them to descend? Or could they control other people and turn them into puppets? If they could ascend, they could descend. Murong Yu and Nie Tianyu looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Once we take action, we'll be declaring war on the Holy Realm. Nie Tianyu said helplessly. Even if we don't fight with them, our God Realm will be destroyed. If we fight with them, we might be destroyed too. Since we're going to be destroyed anyway, we might as well fight with them. I don't believe that the saint still has the strength of a saint after descending. But what should they do? Could they get rid of them? That was the problem. Let's do it this way. First, we'll try to stop the war, then go back and gather our experts. We can't just watch the God Realm be destroyed, and we'll be killed. After discussing for half a day in Hichu Luoshu, the 2 finally came out. Let's go back. After Nie Tianyu appeared, he said this with a gloomy face. Then, he rose into the air and flew back to Celestial Palace. What's going on? Seeing this, the human experts looked at Murongyu in confusion. Negotiations have failed. They don't believe us at all. Murongyu said helplessly, "Damn it, these short-sighted bastards. Once the God Realm is destroyed, I like to see how they'll die." A 10th-level quasi-saint roared angrily. The others were the same. They were very angry and felt that the demon race was short-sighted. Let's just gather our experts and infiltrate the demon race to destroy Celestial Palace. I don't believe that they won't retreat after Celestial Palace is destroyed. A top expert from the desolate world said with a murderous look, "There are many saints in Celestial Palace. I'm afraid we'll be killed before we even get there." Someone said helplessly, "Although Murongyu could make saints ascend, could he make multiple saints ascend at the same time? If he couldn't, then as long as one of the saints reacted and slapped them, they would all be killed." While cursing, Murongyu and the others returned to the human race's encampment. "Murongyu, the deans of the 4 major academies have been alerted. They're now waiting for you in the main hall of Eldritch City. It seems that they're not satisfied with the withdrawal of all their troops." As soon as Murongyu returned, Xiang Sungwu came looking for him with a worried look. A cold, murderous look flashed across Murongyu's eyes. If it weren't for Nie Tianyu's reminder, he wouldn't have known what was going on. But now, he was at least sure that these 4 people were saint puppets. "Murongyu, be careful this time. The deans of the 4 major academies rarely show themselves. I'm sure they'll be very angry this time," Xiang Sungwu warned. Murongyu nodded. Then his figure flickered and entered the main hall of Eldritch City. Asterisk rumble. Asterisk as soon as Murongyu stepped into the main hall, for terrifying auras swept over like torrents, trying to suppress Murongyu. Murongyu snorted. His physical body had reached the peak of the saint grade. These quasi-saint auras couldn't do anything to him. Of course, if they were saints, then it would be a different story. There's the aura of a saint. They're indeed saint puppets. Murongyu sneered in his heart when he felt the aura of a saint in the 4 people. At this time, he was sure that these 4 people were saint puppets. "You're Murongyu? You're the one who ordered the withdrawal of all our troops?" At the top of the main hall, the 4 deans sat side by side with murderous looks. The one who spoke was the expert on the left. He was a young man. He was the dean of Primeval College. Hong. The names of the deans of the 4 major academies were Hong Tianman and No matter which generation the dean was in, once he took office, his name would remain until the day he stepped down. "You've got guts. Alliance Master. You think you can become the Alliance Master of the human race? Don't you know that the human race in the realm of the gods has always been controlled by the 4 major academies?" What a joke. Abyssal College's dean, Tian, looked at Murongyu with a displeased look. Murderous intent flashed between his eyebrows. Although the other 2 deans didn't say anything, their faces were filled with disdain as they looked at Murongyu with killing intent. Chapter 1152. Murongyu indifferently examined the 4 of them, and then he sat down on a nearby chair. He completely ignored the disdain and killing intent of the 4 deans. Seeing Murongyu's nonchalant attitude, Hong and the others were enraged. When they learned that Murongyu had retreated without authorization, they had been abnormally furious. They didn't care if Murongyu wanted to be alliance leader or anything else, nor did they care. But they couldn't allow him to withdraw. Because of that, they immediately came out of seclusion and summoned Murongyu over when they heard the news. "The 4 of you, do you not agree to withdraw?" Murongyu lazily leaned back in his chair, indifferently looking at Hong and the others without the slightest hint of respect. "Impudent. Murongyu, you're too impudent." Man E, who had a short temper, slapped on the armrest of his chair and stood up abruptly. His eyes shone with a terrifying light. The divine light pierced through space and shot toward Murongyu like 2 divine artifacts, intending to blast Murongyu to pieces. A cold glint flashed through Murongyu's eyes as he casually threw out a punch. Boom! After a huge explosion, the two beams of divine light were directly blasted into smithereens. The space in front of him was also blasted apart. However, Morongyu remained motionless. He didn't even move his clothes. It was like man's attack couldn't even take a single blow. Seeing this scene, the pupils of Hong and the other three shrank abruptly. They were well aware of their own strength. Rank 10 quasi-saint was a peak existence, and even a rank 8 expert would find it difficult to block man's divine light attack. But Morongyu, an Empyrean, had blasted it apart with a casual punch. Whoosh! With a flash, the four of them left their seats and arrived in front of Morongyu. I'll give you a choice now. Submit to the four of us, and you can continue to be Alliance leader. Or die. Tian looked at Morongyu with an indifferent expression, his voice cold. At the same time, four extremely powerful auras instantly engulfed Morongyu. What? You want to fight? Morongyu's face turned gloomy, but he still sat on the chair. A cold glint flashed in Big's eyes. He stretched out his big hand and swiftly smashed towards Morongyu's head. It seems like you have chosen the second option. If that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. This kid is very strange. I'll lend you a hand. Barbarian, who had fought earlier, sneered. His invincible godly fist punched out, intending to kill Morongyu with a single punch. Whoosh! Two peak-level 10th Order quasi-saint powerhouses directly attacked. This wasn't just a matter of aura suppression and deterrence. Although Morongyu's physique was strong, and if he borrowed the strength of Yangqin and the others, he could easily kill a 10th Order quasi-saint. However, two quasi-saints were no match for him. Thus, when Barbarian and Barbarian attacked, his figure flickered, and he retreated with explosive speed. Wait a moment. Seeing that Barbarian and Barbarian were about to attack again, Morongyu immediately shouted. Hong and the other three stepped forward, their figures flickering as they surrounded Morongyu, as if afraid that he would escape. The four of you think quite highly of me. How about this? How about we work together? You don't have the qualifications. Heaven disdained to work with Morongyu. I believe that you already know me very well. The experts of the desolate world have already formed an alliance with me. Although their strength isn't enough to sweep through the God realm, it's more than enough to contend against your four academies. Of course, there are no saints among us. However, you should also know that false saints are no threat to me. It's not impossible to work with you. However, the war between the two races cannot be stopped. We must exterminate the Yao race. Outside the main hall of the desolate city, many experts looked worriedly at the main hall in front of them. Morongyu had already been inside for more than half a day, but he still hadn't come out. Would something happen to him? Many people were very worried. After all, those inside were the legendary four great deans with monstrous strength. If they were to harm Morongyu, amidst everyone's worried expressions, Morongyu finally walked out with a smile. Morongyu, how is it? The first to go up were the experts of the desolate world. These people were brought out by Morongyu, so they were naturally closer to Morongyu. Moreover, their goal was the same as Morongyu's, to slay the desolate world. It's fine. In the following time, everyone should cultivate to your heart's content. I've already reached an agreement with the four great deans. The war can be suspended for 1,000 years. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They all knew that the four great deans had summoned Morongyu with murderous intent. They all thought that the war would start again, but they didn't expect it to be suspended for 1,000 years. Many things could be done in 1,000 years. At least, for the people of the desolate world, they could raise their cultivation by several realms in 1,000 years. After Morongyu left the main hall, Hong and the other three looked at each other. It shouldn't be a problem to suspend the war for 10,000 years, right? Our control over the desolate world isn't perfect yet. Suspending it for 1,000 years is just nice. When the eastern desolate world revives, we can immediately control it. At that time, we'll kill our way to the holy world and exterminate the sacred race. Hong's eyes flashed coldly, and his killing intent surged. These idiots dare to try to stop the revival of the eastern desolate world. What a joke. Big Man sneered, his face full of contempt. They were all saints, and they had reason to despise Murong Yu and the others. Actually, as long as we send down our saint aura, we can directly kill Murong Yu. Why don't we kill him? Man looked at the other three in confusion. Among the four of them, his killing intent was the strongest. If Hong and the others hadn't secretly stopped him, he would have killed Murong Yu long ago. He's come in contact with saints. I'm afraid he already knows our deployment. Before we find out who's behind him, we shouldn't act rashly. Hong narrowed his eyes. In fact, when Murong Yu had entered the main hall, he had already sensed a faint trace of saint aura from Murong Yu, and that saint aura was even stronger than theirs. It was because of this that he didn't dare to act rashly. Otherwise, how could they tolerate such an arrogant Murong Yu? Could it be someone from the sacred race? Heaven's face darkened. The current holy world was divided into three kingdoms. The human race, the monster race, and the sacred race split the world into three. They had revived the desolate world to deal with the sacred race. If the sacred race had known about their plan, even if they revived the eastern desolate world, it would have been useless. The sacred race had probably already made preparations. There was only one reason why they hadn't acted yet. They didn't fear the eastern desolate world at all. Let's stop the war for a while and find out who that saint behind Murong Yu is, Hong said indifferently, then disappeared. The pitiful Murong Yu was still immensely pleased with himself, thinking that it was all thanks to him. Little did he know that it was because of Lu Haotsong's aura that Hong and the others were apprehensive. Hong and the others had agreed not to send troops for 1,000 years, so the monster race must have agreed as well. Thus, the divine world was peaceful for 1,000 years. Murong Xian and Murong Yi had run off to the desolate world. Murong Yu had originally planned to immediately enter the desolate world to find them. But in the end, he decided to take things slow and enter the chaotic secret area to raise the level of his other two godheads first. Boom! As soon as Murong Yu stepped out of the Hichu Luo Shu, an extremely strong force came toward him and enveloped him instantly. Murong Yu was instantly enraged. In a flash, he had already retreated. At the same time, he roared, "Old Lu, what are you doing?" Lu Haotsong didn't say a word. He reached out his hand and slammed it down fiercely. Murong Yu was incomparably furious. He instantly borrowed the power of Yangqin and the others for his own use and raised his strength to the 10th rank quasi-saint, then retreated in a flash. At the same time, the He Tu and the Book of the Luo had been summoned by him once again. It came crashing down, trying to suck him into it. However, Lu Haotsong was an imperishable stage expert, and his power wasn't suppressed in the chaotic secret area. How could Murong Yu be his match? With a whoosh, he was caught by Lu Haotsong's hand. Murong Yu was infuriated and was about to curse out loud. But this time, Lu Haotsong's hand reached into his body. Child's play. You're overestimating yourself. Murong Yu was about to curse out loud, but he swallowed it back down. This was because he saw 4 dots of light appear in Lu Haotsong's hand. The 4 dots of light exuded a familiar aura. They belonged to the deans of the 4 great academies. How dare these 4 bastards plot against me? Murong Yu cursed. He was in a bad mood. If Lu Haotsong hadn't discovered it, he wouldn't have known that the 4 bastards had left their auras on him. Presumably, the 4 old bastards have been secretly spying on him for the past few days, right? It's a good thing I didn't do that with Jiqing and the others. Otherwise, wouldn't those 4 bastards have seen a live erotic scene? Murong Yu gnashed his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to kill the 4 of them right now. They're not plotting against you. They're plotting against me. Lu Haotsong sneered and clenched his hand. Puff, 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 puff. When the 4 dots of light were crushed, Hong, Tian, Man, and all coughed up blood at the same time. Their faces instantly withered. He really is a high-level saint. He actually managed to injure my mind and soul at the same time as he destroyed that aura. It's a good thing that it wasn't my aura, or my soul would have been annihilated. The 4 of them shuddered inwardly. Their eyes flashed with shock. An imperishable stage saint was this powerful. Just 4 great saints. How dare you spy on me? You really don't know what's good for you. Liu Haozong clapped his hands and sneered. At the same time, he glared at Murongyu. You didn't even know you were being watched. If it wasn't for me, you probably wouldn't even know how you died. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.